Chapter 5138. Lin Yi's soul form didn't leave a trace, and normal people wouldn't be able to sense his presence. The doctor, on the other hand, wasn't a master either. He didn't even notice that Lin Yi was floating above his head. As for Jing Taiyang and the others, Lin Yi did not deliberately monitor their every move. Firstly, he could not monitor them all. Secondly, he only needed to keep an eye on the bespectacled doctor and Big Brother Dafeng. Naturally, he would know everything. It was not worth the trouble. Like the bespectacled doctor, Big Brother Dafeng did not notice Lin Yi above his head. He was still secretly worried about how to contact Lin Yi. He rolled his eyes and complained to the bespectacled doctor, "It's been half a day. Why haven't Jing Taiyang and the others moved at all? Did something happen? Do you want me to sneak out and take a look? You are not a member of the Archaic Alliance. What if you are seen by others? These are all Foundation establishment experts and even Gold Core experts. Are you not afraid of death?" The bespectacled doctor glanced at him. "I don't think so. This archipelago is not big, but it is not small either. There are not many people gathered here. As long as I am careful, I will not be found," Big Brother Dafeng said confidently. He actually wanted to go out and try his luck. According to his speculation, after a few days, Lin Yi should be here. If he was lucky, he might be able to meet Lin Yi, lest he fell into the trap of the bespectacled doctor and the others. The bespectacled doctor laughed in his heart when he heard this. He already knew Big Brother Dafeng's background. Of course, he could guess what Big Brother Dafeng was thinking. If they were outside, he could beat Big Brother Dafeng at his own game. However, this archipelago was a transit point between the ancient Jianghu and the secular world. In theory, only the people of the Archaic Alliance would appear here. Once Big Brother Dafeng was found, it would be easy to ruin things, so he could only give up on this idea. "Don't worry. It has only been a day. I believe there will be news soon." The bespectacled doctor did not give Big Brother Dafeng a chance to continue talking. He said directly, "That's it. I will take a break first. You keep an eye on them." Big Brother Dafeng could only give up helplessly. In less than half a day, Jing Taiyang and the other Foundation establishment stage experts who were sent out to investigate came back to report the situation. After all, they were disciples of their own sects, and they didn't appear together. They were just going to their respective sects' islands, so they did not arouse too much suspicion. Soon, they found out about the latest situation of their respective sections. After summarizing the situation reported by everyone, the bespectacled doctor said thoughtfully, "In that case, the other primordial sects are all fine. The Green Cloud sect of the North Island and the Snow Sword sect have been in the limelight recently, right?" "That's right. Everyone has been discussing this matter for a long time. It has caused quite a commotion. The Snow Sword School has really been disgraced. They have lost a lot of face." Jing Taiyang, who was eager to make a contribution, interrupted. Although there were no disciples of the Snow Sword School among the people present, with how big this matter was, it was impossible for them not to know about it. Moreover, the archipelago was only so big and it was rare for something new to happen. Everyone usually gathered together to discuss this matter. There was really nothing else to talk about. One is Bing Wuqing in the early Gold Core stage, and the other is Shui Jianfeng in the Great Perfection of Foundation Establishment. They were the top two Foundation Establishment stage experts in the Primordial Alliance, but now they are both crippled. This is a little interesting. The bespectacled doctor pinched his chin and muttered. Not only that, since these two people were crippled, it is said that they have been hiding in the small wooden house in the forest and have not come out. They don't even see their own people from the Snow Sword School. Moreover, it has been so many days since the incident, the small primordial underworld only sent a symbolic letter. They did not send any elixirs or reinforcements. It is said that the upper echelons of the Snow Sword School have given up on these two people. Hee. Jing Taiyang continued. "It can't be? Since they are such powerful experts, how could they be given up so easily?" Brother Dafeng listened with a puzzled expression. "Brother Dafeng, you don't know. To put it nicely, the people of the Primordial Alliance are pragmatic. To put it bluntly, they are snobbish. Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng were both renowned geniuses. If they had only sustained normal injuries, the Snow Sword faction would have protected them no matter what. After all, they would be nurtured to become pillars of the faction in the future. However, they were now crippled. What was the use of being crippled? It is reasonable for the upper echelons of the Snow Sword School to give up on them. It is not strange at all." Jing Taiyang quickly rushed to explain. Brother Dafeng was the same as the mysterious man in black. To him, they were both his immediate superiors. In order to climb up, of course he had to flatter them. "Not bad, not bad. I was afraid that they would be fine. Now it is just the right time to make a fuss. The bespectacled doctor suddenly smiled with interest. How do we make a fuss about this? Brother Dafeng asked. Recruit people's hearts and make use of them. The bespectacled doctor clapped his hands excitedly. Although he had brought Jing Taiyang and the others here to deal with the experts of the Primordial Alliance, neither he nor Lan Xiaoru had ever thought of going against the Primordial Alliance head-on. After all, it was not only meaningless but also not beneficial at all. What they really wanted to do was the same as before. Wait for the opportunity to recruit and control more Foundation establishment experts. If there were any Primordial Alliance disciples alone here, they would definitely not hesitate to make a move. However, there were not many opportunities like this, so they could only change to a more gentle and covert method. From forcefully controlling them with drugs to secretly recruiting and infiltrating them. As the saying goes, flies do not bite seamless eggs. If nothing happened to the people of the Primordial Alliance, even if the bespectacled doctor and the others sneaked in, they would not have a chance to take advantage of it. This was because normal Primordial Alliance disciples would not care about them at all, and might even attack them directly. But now, Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng were the perfect opportunity. How do we recruit them? Are we going to find them directly? Brother Dafeng asked quickly. About this. The bespectacled doctor thought for a moment, then asked Jing Taiyang and the others, You just said that Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng have been hiding in the small wooden house in the forest, not coming out to see anyone? Yes, but we do not have anyone from the Snow Sword School among us, so we do not know the specific situation, Jing Taiyang answered. Chapter 5139. Although there were no Snow Sword faction disciples among them, they were all from the Archaic Alliance after all. There was nothing wrong with going to the Snow Sword faction's island once in a while. They just needed to find an excuse to visit a friend. I'll go. Jing Taiyang stood up without hesitation. In his eyes, this was undoubtedly the best opportunity to make a name for himself. If he could help the center recruit Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng, he would definitely make a great contribution. Even if he couldn't be on equal footing with Brother Dafeng and the others, he would at least be a cut above the other Foundation establishment experts present. He might even be able to become a team leader. This was a great opportunity. All right, you go then. The bespectacled professor nodded immediately. Among everyone he trusted Jing Taiyang the most. If it were any other Foundation establishment experts, he would be afraid of making a mistake. Jing Taiyang taking the initiative was exactly what he wanted. Yes, I will not disappoint you. Jing Taiyang nodded heavily. The bespectacled professor called him over and gave him a name before letting him go. Jing Taiyang was full of ambition. He immediately set off for the Snow Sword faction's exclusive island. Jing Taiyang had just reached the shore by himself when he was stopped by a Snow Sword faction disciple. The disciple looked him up and down and said, Which sect are you from? Don't you know this is our Snow Sword faction's territory? How dare you barge in as you please? Oh, senior brother, I am Jing Taiyang from the Thousand Blade School. I heard that something happened to my friend Shui Jianfeng, so I came over to take a look. Please do me a favor, Jing Taiyang replied unhurriedly. Jing Taiyang from the Thousand Blades faction? You are Shui Jianfeng's friend? The Snow Sword faction disciple was stunned. That's right. Senior brother, you also know that our two sects belong to the Central Island Alliance. We have a good relationship. I met Shui Jianfeng by chance and we hit it off at first sight. Now that I heard that something happened to him, it's reasonable for me to visit him and express my gratitude, Jing Taiyang said with a sigh. So that's how it is. There's actually someone who's willing to visit Shui Jianfeng at this time. You can be considered as someone with a heart. The disciples of the Snow Sword School shook their heads. Shui Jianfeng still had the support of the vice schoolmaster's father, and even though he was now a cripple, there was no one who would dare to hit him when he was down and bully him. However, the world was fickle, and those senior and junior brothers who shook their heads and wagged their tails at Shui Jianfeng had long since avoided him. This was the first time someone had come to visit him, and it was someone from another archaic sect. It's nothing, it's just a token of my appreciation. Jing Taiyang sighed. Very well. If that is the case, I will bring you over. You are not a disciple of our Snow Sword faction. We cannot let you wander around as you please. Follow me, the disciple said, nodding his head. Good. Thank you, senior martial brother. Jing Taiyang cupped his hands. Under the guidance of the Snow Sword School's disciple, Jing Taiyang quickly arrived in front of a small wooden house. It looked extremely secluded, with no one moving around. After thanking the disciple, Jing Taiyang immediately strode in. Who is it? Two voices rang out in the small wooden house at the same time. One was Bing Wuqing and the other was Shui Jianfeng. These two were now crippled, and it was the most sensitive time. The moment they saw a stranger enter, they immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. Don't be nervous. I have no ill intentions towards you. To be precise, I am your lucky star. Jing Taiyang pretended to be profound and smiled slightly. Lucky star? What kind of lucky star are you? Shui Jianfeng frowned and looked him up and down. However, Bing Wuqing remained calm and looked at him. She said, "Who are you? Tell me why you are here." "You must be Bing Wuqing? You are indeed the youngest Golden Core expert of the Snow Sword School. Your bearing is indeed extraordinary. I admire you." Jing Taiyang nodded his head, and then introduced himself. "I am Jing Taiyang of the Thousand Blade School." Thousand Blade School? Jing Taiyang? Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng looked at each other, baffled. The Thousand Blade School was not a small school, but Jing Taiyang was really a nobody. He was not famous at all, and they had never heard of him. "I heard that the two of you were beaten into a cripple and abandoned by the higher-ups of the Snow Sword School. That's why I came to see the two of you." Jing Taiyang looked at the two of them and said, "Are you here to see a joke? Who said that I was abandoned? Don't you know that my father is the deputy leader of the Snow Sword School? Who do you think you are? How dare you come here to see a joke?" Shui Jianfeng was so angry that he jumped up. This time, even Bing Wuqing's expression was unfriendly. She snorted and said, "If you are done, then get lost. Don't be so anxious, the two of you. I came here with a mission. Apart from coming to see you, I also want to show you a bright path." Jing Taiyang suddenly smiled. "What bright path?" Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng were stunned at the same time. Being a cripple must be very unpleasant, right? What if I have a way to help the two of you regain your strength? Jing Taiyang raised his eyebrows and said, What did you say? You have a way to help us regain our strength?" This time, not only Shui Jianfeng stood up in shock, but even Bing Wuqing was shocked. These days, the two of them had been locked up in the small wooden hut. From the once arrogant geniuses to the current nobody cared about them, the feeling of falling from heaven to hell was enough to make one break down. If there was a chance to regain their strength, the two of them would definitely do it at all costs. Jing Taiyang's words were practically their last hope. "Of course. Otherwise, why would I come all the way here?" Jing Taiyang chuckled. "Could it be that you have 2 5th-grade recover pills with you?" Shui Jianfeng hurriedly rushed over and asked. From what he knew, the only thing that could cure his and Bing Wuqing's injuries was a 5th-grade recover pill. But even his father, the deputy leader, could not get his hands on such a thing. How could Jing Taiyang, a nobody in the Thousand Blade sect, have such a valuable thing with him? Bing Wuqing's face was also full of shock. 2 5th-grade recover pills? This Jing Taiyang was really arrogant. "It's not as simple as just regaining your strength. I even have a way to help the two of you increase your strength by a large margin. What do the two of you think?" Jing Taiyang continued with his shocking words. "Is what you said true?" Shui Jianfeng was almost dumbfounded. It was already a blessing in disguise to be able to get a 5th-grade recover pill to recover their strength, but this guy actually said that he could help them increase their strength by a large margin. This sounded absolutely unbelievable. But Bing Wuqing had calmed down at this time. She looked at Jing Taiyang expressionlessly and said, "What are the conditions?" Chapter 5140. Join you? Who are you? Bing Wuqing's eyes narrowed into slits. "Good question, but I can't tell you the answer now. You only have one chance. Do you want to join us?" "Just tell us now," Jing Taiyang said directly. "You won't even tell us who you are, and you want us to make a decision now?" Shui Jianfeng hesitated for a moment. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. This Jing Taiyang had suddenly come to say these things. If what he said was true, then the price he and Bing Wuqing would have to pay would definitely not be small. What if it was a fire pit? "Okay, I agree." Bing Wuqing's answer was very straightforward, without any hesitation. "No way? You agreed to him just like that? What if it's a trap?" Shui Jianfeng was shocked. Bing Wuqing glanced at him and said calmly, "It doesn't matter if it's a trap or not. At most I'll die. How can this situation be better than death?" "Well said, you're indeed a straightforward person." Jing Taiyang was overjoyed. Between the two of them, Bing Wuqing was obviously more valuable. Since Bing Wuqing was willing to agree, then his mission was more than half completed, enough to be recorded in the central headquarters. Seeing that Bing Wuqing was going to leave with Jing Taiyang without hesitation, Shui Jianfeng became anxious. He clenched his teeth and caught up with the two. "If I die, I die. I'll go with you." Now, he understood that his father Shui Liping was probably out of ideas. The Snow Sword faction was obviously going to abandon him and Bing Wuqing. Since that was the case, he might as well learn from Bing Wuqing and stake everything on one throw. Maybe he could really make a comeback? As for whether this was considered betrayal of the Snow Sword faction, it was not within his consideration. Since the Snow Sword faction had already abandoned him, betrayal was nothing. Very well, don't worry. I promise you'll be pleasantly surprised when you get there. You won't be disappointed. Jing Taiyang chuckled and immediately led the two of them away from the Snow Sword faction disciples. They sneaked out from the small path and returned to the place where the bespectacled doctor and brother Dafeng were hiding. Looking at Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng standing in front of him, the bespectacled doctor couldn't help but praise Jing Taiyang. Great. You brought the two of them here so quickly. Your efficiency is pretty good. You're very capable. You flatter me. Jing Taiyang was overjoyed. Keep up the good work. Our center needs someone as capable as you. I'll personally recommend you to Dr. Lan later. You have a bright future ahead of you, the bespectacled doctor said casually. Many thanks to the higher-ups, this subordinate will definitely sacrifice his life for you. Jing Taiyang hurriedly knelt on one knee to show his loyalty. All right, you may leave for now. The bespectacled professor waved his hand, indicating that he wanted to speak to Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng personally. Jing Taiyang quickly nodded and retreated. Big Brother Feng frowned. What about me? You're different from them. You're the leader of this operation. What's there to avoid? The bespectacled doctor treated Brother De Feng as a close friend. To put it bluntly, he wanted to win over Brother De Feng. This was a chess piece that was buried deep underground. Only by making him feel safe could he play a greater role in the future. Jing Taiyang and the other Foundation establishment experts stayed on guard outside. There were only 4 people left at the scene: the bespectacled doctor, Brother De Feng, Bing Wuqing, and Xue Jianfeng. Since the two of you are willing to come with Jing Taiyang, I'm sure you've thought it through. But I have to say something up front. Once you join us, there's no room for regret. Otherwise, you'll wish you were dead. Since we have the ability to lift you up, we naturally have the ability to throw you down. It'll be too miserable if you end up in a state that's neither human nor ghost. You'd better think it through first, the bespectacled doctor said in an unpredictable tone. Since I've chosen to come here, I won't regret it. Of course, the premise is that you can fulfill your promise. Although Bing Wuqing was a useless person without any strength, she was not afraid at all in the face of the bespectacled doctor and Brother De Feng. Those who did not know better would think that she was still a powerful early-stage golden elixir expert. Me too, Xue Jianfeng followed. All right, don't worry. Of course, I'll fulfill my promise to you. Otherwise, we're just recruiting 2 useless people. What's in it for us? The bespectacled doctor said with a smile. Then, can we start? Bing Wuqing said immediately. Beside her, Xue Jianfeng's eyes were burning with eagerness. All right. The bespectacled doctor nodded. He took out 2 elixirs from his black robe and handed them to the 2 of them. He said calmly, "These 2 elixirs are enough to help you recover your strength. But this is only the first step. What comes next is the main show." This is a 5th grade recover pill? Xue Jianfeng was overjoyed. But he only took one look before his expression changed. He looked as if he had been cheated. He flew into a rage and said, "No, this is not a 5th grade recover pill at all. How dare you deceive us?" Bing Wuqing's expression was equally unfriendly. The reason why she had agreed so quickly was purely because she wanted to make a last-ditch effort. Even an idiot could figure out the risks involved. If the other party had really been deceiving them on purpose, she and Xue Jianfeng would not have any chance of turning things around. 5th grade recover pill? Who said that to cure your injuries, you must use a 5th grade recover pill? Although the bespectacled doctor was shrouded in a black robe, one could imagine his expression at the moment from his tone. It must be full of mockery and playfulness. Isn't it? Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng looked at each other in shock. Their knowledge was definitely not shallow, but according to their knowledge, no other elixir other than a 5th grade recover pill could cure them. Haha, we'll know whether it's true or not after we eat it. Do you have the guts? The bespectacled doctor looked at the 2 of them and said playfully. This. Xue Jianfeng fell into a state of hesitation and struggle. But Bing Wuqing, who was beside him, did not say a word. She took the elixir and swallowed it without hesitation. He was a person who advocated absolute rationality, and he knew that they had no other choice in this situation. Instead of hesitating and scaring themselves, he might as well make up his mind and go all the way. Not bad at all. I admire you very much. The bespectacled doctor did not hide his admiration for Bing Wuqing at all. If he could make this fellow submit to him sincerely and become his right-hand man, He would definitely be successful in all his endeavors in the future. This was a talent that could not be found anywhere else. Bing Wuqing's expression changed slightly after she swallowed the elixir. Then, without saying a word, she sat down cross-legged on the spot and began to circulate her energy to treat her injuries. Chapter 51-41. But there was clearly no room for him to ask questions now. Seeing that the bespectacled professor and Brother Dafeng were staring at him, Shui Jianfeng finally decided to go all out. He gritted his teeth and swallowed the elixir. As soon as the elixir entered his stomach, he felt a sharp pain. Shui Jianfeng couldn't help but howl in pain. He rolled on the ground, trembling. He couldn't imagine how Bing Wuqing could endure such intense and terrifying pain without making a sound. She was a freaking monster. Shui Jianfeng felt like he was about to die. Apart from the pain, his mind was filled with regret. He regretted being so stupid to follow Bing Wuqing out to die. Although he was also a disabled person, his situation was completely different from Bing Wuqing's. Bing Wuqing had no hope and could only give it her all, but he was different. He had the protection of Shui Liping, the vice leader, who might one day get him a 5th-grade recover pill to revive him. Even at the very least he would not have to worry about food and clothing. But now he had foolishly come out to die. Wasn't he crazy? Along with the intense pain becoming more and more intense, Shui Jianfeng's intestines were simply on the verge of turning green with regret. However, right when he couldn't endure it any longer and was about to give up in despair, the intense pain within his body suddenly vanished completely, and it was as if it had never appeared. Subsequently, he noticed something that caused him to be extremely pleasantly surprised. The injuries within his body had actually healed in this short period of time. Shui Jianfeng was dumbstruck. This was simply a miracle. While Shui Jianfeng was still in shock, Bing Wuqing had already stood up. Although she couldn't hide the surprise on her face, she was 10,000 times calmer than Shui Jianfeng. This elixir is very powerful. I believe that even a 5th-grade recover pill can't have such a powerful effect. What elixir is it? Bing Wuqing asked in her usual tone. She hadn't personally eaten a 5th-grade recover pill, but she knew quite a lot about it. Even if a 5th-grade recover pill could restore her dantian, it was impossible for it to do so in such a short time. You know your stuff. This is indeed not a 5th-grade recover pill, but an improved version produced by our center. Its effect is 10 times that of a 5th-grade recover pill. The bespectacled professor smiled proudly. So powerful? Shui Jianfeng finally reacted. Surprised, he hurriedly asked, "Now you can tell us what kind of organization the center is, right? There's no need to rush. Why don't you take a closer look at the changes in your bodies?" The bespectacled doctor suggested. With this reminder, Shui Jianfeng suddenly felt as if he had discovered a new continent. My meridians seem to be wider than before. Cultivators relied on the meridians in their bodies to circulate their true qi. The wider the meridians were, the smoother the flow of Jin qi would be. Naturally, the more Jin qi could be mobilized in an instant. Basically, the more powerful an expert was, the wider their meridians would be. This was definitely a very gratifying change. Shui Jianfeng felt that if he recovered, his strength would at least be a notch stronger than before. This was simply a blessing in disguise. Not only have they become wider, but they've also become tougher. Bing Wuqing's expression was a little strange. That's right, they do seem tougher. This is a good thing. This way I can mobilize Jin qi without any scruples. I don't have to worry about my meridians exploding. Shui Jianfeng was even more surprised. Just like the wider meridians, the tougher meridians were also a good thing. After all, those powerful martial arts techniques required the mobilization of a large amount of true qi in an instant. Many times one had to pursue the limit. If the strength of the meridians was not tough enough, a slight overload would cause the meridians to explode, and one would end up half dead. But now that the meridians had become tough, there was no such worry. You're wrong. This may not be a good thing. Bing Wuqing shook her head. How can that be? Shui Jianfeng looked puzzled. In the short term, this can indeed make our strength stronger. But in the long term, this is equivalent to killing our future potential. Because the tougher the meridians are, the harder it is to break and rebuild. It will be even more difficult to break through in the future, Bing Wuqing said in a low voice. Impressive, impressive. You're indeed extraordinary. You're the first person to see through this in such a short time. The bespectacled doctor applauded. Killing our future potential? Shui Jianfeng could not help but be a little dumbfounded. He had not thought about this at all. Compared to Bing Wuqing, the former #1 Foundation establishment cultivator in the Archaic Alliance, he was too far behind. That's right. But you don't have to be nervous. Although it will indeed be more troublesome to break through in the future for you, this is definitely more beneficial than harmful. The improved 5th grade Great Rejuvenation Elixir can repair your dantian and reform your meridians. This is to build a foundation for you. Next, it's time to witness a miracle. The bespectacled doctor smiled mysteriously. Then he took out 2 strangely shaped elixirs from his black robe and handed them to the two. Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng looked at each other. Although they had some doubts, with the improved 5th grade Great Rejuvenation Elixir as a foundation, their trust in the bespectacled doctor had obviously increased. They each took the elixirs and stuffed them into their mouths. Half a day later, Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng seemed to have become completely different people. The aura around them was completely different from before. They were each 10 or even 100 times stronger. I've become a golden core expert. Shui Jianfeng was in disbelief as he felt the earth-shattering changes in his body. He felt like he was dreaming. He had been stuck at Foundation Establishment Great Circle for many years. He had tried countless times, but he had never been able to advance a level. Now he had suddenly become a gold core expert. Anyone would suspect that they were dreaming. Bing Wuqing, who was beside him, was also immersed in disbelief and shock. Unlike Shui Jianfeng, who had advanced from Foundation Establishment Perfected to Golden Core Early Stage, Bing Wuqing had advanced 4 levels from Golden Core Early Stage to Golden Core Late Stage. It was only now that the two of them finally understood why they had modified their meridians to be so wide and tough. It turned out that it was for the sake of being able to withstand the extremely strong medicinal effect of the second unknown pill. Otherwise, forget about their strength skyrocketing, the two of them would have long since had their meridians ruptured from the impact of the incomparable true qi, and even their bodies would have long since been torn into pieces. Chapter 5142. Congratulations to the two of you. After suffering comes happiness. I think the higher-ups of your Snow Sword faction will have to find a place to buy medicine for regret. The bespectacled doctor had expected all this. He stood at the side and smiled faintly. That's great. That's great. I'm a golden core expert now. Let's see who can stop me now. Wah! Shui Jianfeng's despair and decadence were swept away, and he suddenly became arrogant. Even the way he looked at the bespectacled doctor and Brother Dafeng was not as respectful as before. Instead, he began to look down on them. After all, in terms of strength, the two of them did not even have the strength of a Foundation Establishment cultivator, but he was now a high and mighty golden core expert. They were not on the same level at all. Strength determined the right to speak. In addition, he had always been arrogant. Now that he had reverted to his old ways, he naturally looked down on them. Bing Wuqing's behavior was no different from before. She was expressionless and looked on coldly. Looking at Shui Jianfeng's arrogant behavior, the bespectacled doctor suddenly laughed. He shook his head and said, "Don't celebrate too early. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Why don't you check your dantian first?" Dantian? Shui Jianfeng was stunned. He quickly checked his dantian carefully and found nothing strange. However, when he checked for the second time, he suddenly found a faintly discernible and strange vital energy wandering around his dantian. This vital energy was very weak. If he did not check carefully, he would not notice it at all. It was uncontrollable and could not be eliminated. Shui Jianfeng could not help but be shocked. What the hell is this vital energy? Poisonous gas. To tell you the truth, every improved version of the elixir produced by our center has a poisonous gas. This poisonous gas usually hides in your dantian and does not cause any harm. However, after a long time it will become active. Once it gets out of your dantian, it will be fatal. The bespectacled doctor laughed. What? Shui Jianfeng's expression changed drastically. He quickly asked, "Then aren't we definitely going to die?" "Don't be so nervous. Our center's improved elixir is a rare product that can't be bought outside. How can we waste it? As long as you do your job well, I will naturally give you the antidote to control the poisonous gas regularly. If you don't listen to me, then I can only leave you to fend for yourself." The bespectacled doctor looked at the two fearlessly. The center was not a charity, nor were they fools. Although they also paid attention to controlling people's hearts, they would never leave a backup plan. That was because the human heart was the most difficult thing to understand and control in the world. In comparison, drug control was much safer and more reliable. Of course, this control method was much simpler than Jing Taiyang's drug brainwashing, but the advantage was that it didn't hurt the brain, leaving no obvious side effects, no traces, and could retain more potential. Therefore, such a method couldn't be used on ordinary people. Only those who held a grudge against the Archaic Alliance could be roped in, given elixirs, and then threatened to control them. Only by combining kindness and authority could one ensure that nothing would go wrong, just like Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. Shui Jianfeng had just thought of burning the bridge after crossing it, yet he was instantly dumbstruck and he was stunned for a long time, unable to speak a proper sentence. Meticulous and resourceful. Looks like I didn't make the wrong choice. Bing Wuqing didn't care about this at all. In fact, she had already been prepared for this the moment she received the elixir. If the center didn't have any means to control it, she would have doubted whether this organization had any future. For him, who had been abandoned by the Snow Sword faction's higher-ups, joining the center now had no psychological burden at all. Even if the bespectacled doctor told him to make a move against the people of the Archaic Alliance now, he would absolutely not hesitate. As for controlling the elixir, there was no other way. There was still a long way to go. Of course, being able to join the center is a blessing that you have accumulated over several lifetimes. I don't need to say more, you will naturally experience it in the future. Do well, the bespectacled doctor said proudly. Then what should we do now? Should we go straight to the North Island's Blue Cloud sect? That Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang as well as Leng Leng, it's best if we kill them all. Shui Jianfeng didn't dare to have any other thoughts, so he quickly adjusted his attitude. Lin Dongfang. Hearing this name, Bing Wuqing's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Previously, when she was only in the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm, she was no match for him, and was beaten up like a dead dog by that old man in public. Now that her strength had skyrocketed to the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm, of course she wanted to take revenge with her own hands. Looking at the murderous look on the two's faces, the bespectacled doctor snorted coldly and said with dissatisfaction, I spent so much to support you too, is it just for you to take revenge for your personal grudges? But Shui Jianfeng was taken aback. From the moment he found out about the poisonous gas in his dantian, he had already completely adjusted his attitude. He knew that he was just a pawn in front of the other party, so he didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. Seeing the sudden change in attitude, he immediately panicked. Your Excellency. Oh no, sir. Call the higher-ups. Brother Dafeng, who was at the side, glanced at him. Yes. Two higher-ups, if you don't want us to take revenge, what do you want us to do? Shui Jianfeng asked carefully. If it was in the past, he would definitely not be so servile. However, after being crippled twice in a row, his temperament was completely different from before, and he no longer had the arrogance he used to have. Right now, our top priority is to rope in more people. Expanding our forces is the first priority. If you two go to take revenge just like that, you will only alert the enemy and ruin the big plan. I'm warning you, without my permission, the two of you must not show your true strength in front of outsiders. Otherwise, it will arouse suspicion, the bespectacled doctor said in a low voice. Are we going to continue pretending to be crippled? Shui Jianfeng asked. That won't be necessary. You just have to announce to the public that you obtained a 5th-grade Great Recovery pill from the small ancient underworld through special channels. At most, the others will only talk about it for a while, and they won't be too suspicious, the bespectacled doctor said. That's not a problem. If someone asks, we can just push the blame to my father. In any case, he's the deputy leader of the Snow Sword faction. If he's lucky, it won't be strange for him to get 2 5th-grade Great Recovery pills, Shui Jianfeng said with a nod. How do we rope in more people? Bing Wuqing suddenly asked. Chapter 51-43. Understood. Bing Wuqing nodded and then asked, how many people do we need to recruit? As long as they meet the requirements, the more the better. The bespectacled doctor smiled. What about after that? Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng looked at each other. Although they had taken the core's elixirs and became a member, they still knew nothing about the center, let alone what the center wanted to do. We'll talk about the rest later. Don't worry, there will be a chance for you to take revenge. The bespectacled doctor comforted them. Yes. Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng did not have any friendship to speak of, and their personalities were completely opposite. However, at this moment they had the same thought. Since they could not take revenge for now, they would wait for the primeval trial. That way they would not alert the enemy. The bespectacled doctor gave them a few more reminders before letting them go back to their work. He was secretly delighted. The second step of the primeval plan had been unexpectedly smooth so far. Not only did he control Brother Dafeng, the spy, but he had also obtained 2 golden core experts, Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng. Bing Wuqing in particular was very much to his liking. With such talents under his command, great things could happen. Little did they know that their every move was seen clearly by Lin Yi in the sky. There were no secrets to speak of. This method seems to be the same as what Si Haishao did back then. Linny could not help but sigh. Although he was not very clear about the specific situation, he could basically deduce that Si Haishao on Heaven Level Island must have sought refuge with the center in this way. He did not expect that the people in the center of the secular world would act in the same way as those on Heaven Level Island. However, what really shocked Linny was the two elixirs. They could actually have such a terrifying effect. It was simply unbelievable. Even if it was as Bing Wuqing said, that they were actually overdrafting their potential by doing so, it was still an incredible thing. This was not an exception even to Lin Yi's eyes. He could not help but sigh. The center was really not to be underestimated. Back then, when Su Lingchong and the others had suddenly improved their strength by leaps and bounds, Lin Yi couldn't understand it no matter how hard he racked his brain. But after seeing Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng, these two living examples, he immediately understood everything. Most of these people had taken this kind of elixir. On the surface, they were still disciples of the three pavilions of the North Island, but secretly they had long become the lackeys of the center. Thinking of this, even Lin Yi couldn't help but gasp. The power of the center not only extended to the Heaven Stage Island through the Central Chamber of Commerce, but also secretly extended to various sections. There were people in the three pavilions of the North Island, and there must be people in other sections. They might even secretly control some sections. It was simply impossible to guard against. After returning to Heaven Stage Island, it seemed that he would have to look for the big shots of Shanghai Tianhua to have a good talk. He had to be on guard, or else the consequences would be unimaginable if the hidden forces at the center couldn't be dealt with. However, these could only be discussed in the future. After confirming the action plan of these people at the center, Lin Yi knew that there was no need to continue to secretly monitor them. Anyway, the center was only doing some dirty tricks for the time being. He just needed to remind Xi and Ejia to be a little more careful. As for launching a counterattack against the center, this idea just flashed in Lin Yi's mind, and was quickly rejected. Although it was not impossible to do so, if Xi and Ejia gathered all the disciples of the far ancient sects, with Lin Dongfang's help, Lin Yi had enough confidence to deal with the Glasses Professor and the others, even if there were two gold core experts, Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng. However, this was definitely a bad plan. Not only would it alert the enemy, but it was also mainly because the center had not shown any attitude of being the enemy of the Far Ancient Alliance so far. Whether it was Bing Wuqing, Xue Jianfeng or Jing Taiyang, they had only secretly surrendered to the center. No one would believe that they had completely betrayed the Far Ancient Alliance without any substantial action. Even Xi and Ejia, the leading martial uncle, had no reason to directly attack them in this situation. Therefore Lin Yi decided to stay put for the time being. Anyway, the archipelago was not big, and they could easily detect the slightest movement. As long as Xi and Ejia was careful, there should be no problem. After making the decision, Lin Yi immediately returned to the exclusive island of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island. He found a deserted place to recondense his primordial spirit, and then reappeared in front of everyone. "Martial uncle, you're back." The first person he saw was Xi and Ejia. Now that almost all the disciples of the far ancient sects had come to the archipelago to cultivate in seclusion, he, the nominal leading martial uncle, was almost absent. He had nothing to do, and at most he would give some guidance to those few prospective disciples every day. Did anything happen recently?" Lin Yi asked casually. In fact, he had already heard about the disturbance when he transformed into his primordial spirit to search around. This question was just a formality. Actually something happened, but fortunately it was more daunting than dangerous. We weren't the ones who suffered losses. Xi and Ejia's expression was a little strange. He told Lin Yi about the previous disturbance, and then he could not help but ask, "Martial uncle, what realm is that senior Lin Dongfang in?" This question had been bothering him for a long time. Since the day he saw Lin Dongfang fight, he had been thinking about the strength of this expert who was born and raised in the secular world. Middle stage gold core, or even stronger than that, or even a nascent soul-old monster. In any case, to be able to bully Bing Wuqing to that extent, this Lin Dongfang's strength was absolutely unfathomable. At least he, a mere early-stage gold core expert, would not dare to slight him. About that, I don't know either. Anyway, he's quite strong. Lin Yi answered non-committally. Not to mention that he really did not know. Even if he knew, he would not easily reveal Lin Dongfang's strength and realm to outsiders. He immediately changed the topic and said, "By the way, I discovered something when I went out this time. As the leading martial uncle in the secular world, you'd better pay attention to it." "What is it?" Xi and Ejia was stunned. "There's an organization in the secular world called the Center, and they've begun to target the Far Ancient Alliance. They want to secretly instigate those disciples of the Far Ancient Alliance who have a grudge against you. Currently, there are already people under their control. I think you'd better be careful lest things get out of hand. Lin Yi reminded him seriously. Chapter 51-44. The mortal world's overall strength was not on the same level as the Archaic Alliance. It was like a 3-year-old challenging a heavyweight boxing champion. It was impossible. Nothing is impossible. The Central's methods are far superior to the other factions. It's no small matter. Lin Yi shook his head. He did not doubt the Central's strength at all. If they could do well on Heaven Island, it would be a piece of cake for them to face the Archaic Alliance. Although Enchanted still did not quite believe it, he quickly became cautious when he saw Lin Yi's expression. He frowned and said, "Is the center really that powerful? But aren't these cultivation powers in the secular world all following Martial Granduncle's lead? The only thing I can control is the Practitioners Association in the common world, and the training center isn't one of them. You can think of it as an evil organization, and the threat it poses isn't something a few common world forces can compare to. Don't let your guard down," Lin Yi warned again. "Then what should we do?" Enchanted finally changed his attitude. "Bide our time and observe the situation," Lin Yi said indifferently. Enchanted was someone who could lead the team after all. Be it in strength or shrewdness, he was not bad. He quickly understood Lin Yi's meaning and nodded. "I understand. Thank you for the reminder, Grandmaster. I'll ask people to be on the lookout. We won't alert them." "Okay, go on with your work." Lin Yi nodded and walked to the other eye. It was still bustling with activity. After everyone's hard work, the seaside villa was starting to take shape. It looked like a headquarters. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but feel excited when he saw it. He thought that everyone was just fooling around. After all, even if they were Heaven Realm full-cycle masters, this was building a house, not a fight. They were all amateurs. He didn't expect Wuxia and the others to be so capable. They seemed to be doing it well. "Boss." Everyone gathered around Lin Yi when they saw him drop what he was doing immediately, all of them overjoyed as they talked about the incident that happened earlier. "I've heard about it. It seems like it was a wise decision to ask old Lin to come here." Lin Yi smiled and greeted everyone. "Bullshit. If I wasn't here, you would be in big trouble. You and Ling Lingshan would be in different places." Lin Dongfang walked over angrily, and Aunt Qing accompanied him with a smile. Yes. That's why you're my lucky star. I'll just settle down here. The scenery is good and there's enough spiritual energy. It's a good place for retirement." Lin Yi smiled. "You want me to stay here to look after the house? Keep dreaming." Lin Dongfang snorted. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he didn't have the conditions. Even if the water wasn't as strict on him as Air Gooden, he still had to go back every once in a while. Staying here to retire was just an empty promise. Lin Yi smiled. Of course he knew that, so he just said it casually. But he still felt a little regretful. The water's restriction was quite a problem for Lin Dongfang and Air Gooden. Too bad this wasn't Sky-class island. They didn't have the help of the Crappy King, nor did they have Han Jingjing's automatic weapon crafting mechanism. They'd have to wait until next time to upgrade the Waniankimo box. "Right, take these elixirs and split them among yourselves. We'll stop building the villa for a while. We need to break through to Foundation as soon as possible," Lin Yi said as he took out a bunch of Foundation elixirs. "Foundation establishment?" Lingshan and the others paused. They looked at each other as they took the pills. "You're the one who raised our strength. Didn't you say that we couldn't break through on our own?" This was what everyone knew. Otherwise they wouldn't be working so calmly on building the villa. If they could break through on their own, people like Qintian would have gone into isolation a long time ago. They all thought that they could only rely on Lin Yi if they wanted to level up, but Lin Yi's current strength was only at Foundation Establishment full mastery. Before he recovered to the Golden Core stage, he couldn't help them increase their strength, so there was nothing they could do for now. "I used to think so too, but after the experiments on Sky-class island, I realized that this might not be the case. The reason why there's this restriction in the common world is probably because the spiritual chi is too thin. Here, there's plenty of spiritual chi, and with the Foundation Establishment pill, we might be able to break through to Foundation Establishment. There's a lot of pills anyway, so there's no harm in trying," Lin Yi explained. "Oh, I see. That's great." Everyone was overjoyed. Not only the men but Lingshan and the girls were also cheering. Everyone wanted to become stronger. This was an instinctive goal for any practitioner, and normal people were no exception. Also Lung, you too. Although you're already Foundation Establishment middle phase, you still need to increase your strength as soon as possible. If you can reach Foundation Establishment full cycle and break through to Golden Core here, that'll be even better. Lin Yi turned to Lung Lung. Oh okay, Lung Lung nodded obediently. Lung Lung nodded obediently. Her heart was now tied to Lin Yi. She would do whatever Lin Yi asked her to do. Moreover, she had always been a diligent person. It was normal for her to go into closed-door training. Hence, she was not against it. Lin Dongfang suddenly spoke up as he watched Lin Yi giving orders to everyone. Kid, what's going on? Everyone froze and looked at Lin Dongfang strangely. Why did the old man suddenly ask such a question? Even Lin Yi was surprised. Old Lin's reaction was unexpectedly fast. Lin Dongfang curled his lips. What's with that look? You can't see something so obvious? Do you think I'm senile? Something must have happened for you to ask them to increase their strength so urgently. Tell us. That's right, boss. If you have anything to say, just tell us. Don't keep everything to yourself. Everyone came to their senses and nodded in agreement. Chapter 51-45. There's such a thing? Everyone was shocked. Only Lin Dongfang was as calm as usual, just like when he crippled Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng. It was as if he didn't care about this matter at all. But you don't have to worry too much. The people in the center won't do anything for now. At most, they will continue to incite the disciples of the Archaic Alliance. So as long as we are careful, there shouldn't be any problems. But for safety's sake, we should increase our strength as soon as possible. That way, even if something unexpected happens, we will have the strength to protect ourselves. Lin Yi said. Understood, boss. We will go into seclusion now. We won't let you down. Everyone nodded and then left to find a place to go into seclusion. Lin Yi nodded inwardly. Although this matter was not a small amount of pressure for them, it seemed that pressure could become motivation. Perhaps there would be unexpected gains. Looking at the backs of everyone leaving, Lin Dongfang glanced at Lin Yi and said, Are you confident about this matter? Yes, at least in this archipelago there shouldn't be any problems. But it's hard to say after the training in the secular world is over. Lin Yi frowned. After all, the experts of the Archaic Alliance weren't just for show. Moreover, if this matter were to get out of hand, the Archaic Alliance would definitely be alerted. With the strength of the headquarters in the secular world, they wouldn't dare to do anything for now. But once the training was over and the experts of the Archaic Alliance left, the people in the center would be able to do whatever they wanted. The safety of this place would be greatly reduced. Then what do you plan to do? Lin Dongfang asked. We'll see how it goes. If the situation is good, we'll continue to use this place as the headquarters. After all, there isn't a place with such good spiritual qi in the secular world. If it doesn't work, we'll have to give up on this place. Lin Yi said with some regret. It's fine. I'll come over and watch. As long as the other side's strength isn't too ridiculous, you don't have to worry about it. Lin Dongfang said lightly. Alright, I was waiting for you to say that. Lin Yi excitedly clapped his hands. Are you trying to trick me? The corners of Lin Dongfang's mouth twitched with an unfriendly expression. Not at all. I just want to find a place for you to retire. This is my filial piety. Lin Yi chuckled. After staying on Heaven Stage Island for a few years, your skin has become quite thick. Lin Dongfang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He then asked, By the way, what do you plan to do with Lung Lung? Are you just going to leave her in the secular world? This lass has already thrown caution to the wind for you. If she were to return to the tiny world of the primeval times by herself, her outcome would probably not be good. After all, strictly speaking, this is already no different from betraying her sect. It's up to her to decide. I do hope that she can stay here, but I think she still has some concerns about the primordial underworld. To be honest, I'm not worried about the others except for Lung Lung. If she chooses to return to the primordial underworld, Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng will not let her go. Lin Yi pinched his chin and frowned. Are you going to force her to stay? It's not impossible. This lass is dead set on you. If you really say so, I think she will agree. Lin Dongfang had always been a good judge of character. Although he didn't have much contact with Lung Lung recently, he could clearly see Lung Lung's temperament. No, I won't do such a thing against her will. Lung Lung once told me that after the training in the secular world ends, it will be the primordial trials that she has been longing for. I'm going to accompany her to participate at that time just in case. Lin Yi decided. Oh, didn't you say that there's a time limit for the primordial spirit projection? Are you sure you can stay here until then? Lin Dongfang asked doubtfully. I'm not sure, but I recently discovered that although the concentration of spiritual chi here is a little lower than Heaven Stage Island, I don't know why, but it's very good for nourishing the primordial spirit. This was a new discovery after he transformed into a primordial spirit. The perception of the surrounding environment in the form of a primordial spirit was obviously much sharper. This nourishment had the effect of nourishing everything silently. If not, Lin Yi might not have been able to detect it. So, you're in a good state now? Lin Dongfang looked him up and down. Well, not only that, I also obtained a piece of charcoal-like treasure from Lung Lung. It contains majestic divine sense energy, which can be replenished at any time. I think it should be able to hold on for a while. Lin Yi nodded. He had been using star ink charcoal for cultivation recently. He felt that his primordial spirit not only did not weaken, but it seemed to be more solid than before. Looking at this trend, it should not be a problem to hold on for a few more months. If all went well, it was not impossible to hold on until the primordial trials. That's good too. I'll leave Lung Lung to you, kid. I'll have to work a little harder to keep an eye on the secular world for you. Lin Dongfang curled his lips and then went out for a walk with Aunt Qing. Lin Yi looked at the back of the two and smiled slightly. Having old man Lin around really made him feel a lot more at ease. At least he did not have to worry about the secular world. However, after coming back for so long, he now began to miss the days on Heaven Stage Island. He did not know how Tian Chan and the others were doing recently. Heaven Stage Island, Middle Island, Tiandan Pavilion. It had been a full 4 months since Lin Yi's primordial spirit projection. Tiandan Pavilion was quite peaceful during this period. No one dared to come looking for trouble, but the business was not very good recently. On the contrary, the medicine sect, which had been standing on the opposite side, directly opened to reservation for alchemy because Jing Dongxing, a 7th-grade alchemist, was personally in charge, so they directly opened the reservation for alchemy and grabbed a lot of business. If Lin Yi was there, he could easily take back the limelight with some high-grade alchemy pills. Unfortunately, he had been away for too long. The alchemy pills left behind before he left could not support for such a long time. Tian Chan's alchemy skills were obviously not comparable to Zheng Dongxing's, so it led to the deterioration of the business. Alas, today's turnover is less than yesterday's. The situation is not good if this continues. Sydney looked at the account book and sighed. Since Lin Yi released the 7th-grade alchemy pills and created a peak performance, the trend had basically been maintained in recent months. Although the daily decline was not large, it had been like this for several months in a row. The decline accumulated was quite exaggerated. Chapter 5146. There's nothing we can do. It's all because of the famous medicine sect. No matter what promotion strategy we come up with, they will immediately make targeted arrangements, especially with Zheng Dongxing in charge. After all, the appeal of a 7th-grade alchemist is not simple. Many of our customers have been stolen, Wei Xinjin said with a bitter smile. That's right. Last time, Brother Kai Zhongyang received a rumor that the famous medicine sect has been using their connections to slander our heavenly elixir pavilion. In order to compete with us for business, they have resorted to all sorts of means. They are too despicable. Xueli was furious when she talked about this. Although the famous medicine sect was unscrupulous in doing this, and it was not presentable at all, with their hundreds of years of foundation and connections in Middle Island, the effect was unquestionable. As time went on, it would have a fatal impact on the reputation that Tiandan Pavilion had worked hard to build. The most helpless thing was that even if Tian Chan and the others knew about it, they could do nothing about it because the slander was carried out in secret. They had no evidence at all, so naturally they could not complain. In fact, if you think about it carefully, it's ridiculous that the famous medicine sect has been forced to this point. After all, with the help of Okuda Island's master, they dare not attack our Tiandan Pavilion openly, so they can only use these despicable means. A group of villains, Wei Xinjin said disdainfully. Lin Yi said that the best way to deal with this kind of slander is to have a head-on confrontation. If we completely defeat the famous medicine sect, the rumors will naturally fall apart. It's a pity that my alchemy skills are not enough. If only Lin Yi was here. He has been in the secular world for a whole 4 months. I don't know how he is, sigh. Tian Chan looked at Lin Yi's body lying on the bed with some worry. Although there seemed to be no change after such a long time, it was still worrying. Wei Xinjin couldn't help but mutter, this? Last time, when I accompanied Boss Lin Yi to perform primordial spirit projection, I heard from Steward Sun and Southern Aurora that being able to stay in the secular world for 2 months was already very good. Now that 4 months have passed, there won't be any accidents, right? The two women were already a little worried. After hearing what he said, they became even more flustered. Sydney couldn't help but say, "Why don't we find someone to ask? Otherwise we'll always feel uneasy." "That's fine. But who should we ask about this? We can't possibly ask that Southern Polar Light, right?" Tian-chan said with a frown. "The last time we performed primordial spirit projection, Okuda Island Master once said that our boss Lin Yi's matters are his matters. If we need help, we can look for him." "Why don't I accompany sister-in-law Tian-chan to the Island Master's pavilion?" Wei Shinjin suggested. Although Okuda Island Master did say this, his status was too low. If it was him, he probably wouldn't even be able to enter the Island Master's pavilion, let alone ask for an audience with Okuda Island Master. However, it was different for Tian-chan. Not only was she Lin Yi's lover, but she was also the younger sister of the Will of Heaven. She still had some face in the Island Master's pavilion. "Okay, then it's decided. No matter what, at least we can find peace of mind." Tian-chan made a prompt decision. At the same time, Tong Yangsua from the medicine sect was also reporting the situation to Zheng Dongxing. "Recently, the business has been growing every day. It looks good." Zheng Dongxing looked at the account book with satisfaction. "This is reasonable. After all, we have done so much effort in the open and in the dark. In addition, we have you, a 7th grade alchemist, personally in charge of alchemy. If we still can't save the business, then we really have seen a ghost." Tong Yangsua smiled. "By the way, how is the Tiandan Pavilion? Is it deserted?" Zheng Dongxing said with a playful expression. The rumors that we have been secretly releasing have worked. The Tiandan Pavilion is indeed getting worse these days, but overall, the blow to them is not very big. It can only be said that it is barely satisfactory." Tong Yangsua spread his hands. "How could this be?" Zheng Dongxing's face sank. Lin Yi and the Tiandan Pavilion had long become a thorn in his side. Now that Lin Yi's soul was projected to the secular world, it was a good opportunity to step on the Tiandan Pavilion beyond redemption. For this, he did not even hesitate to use his influence as a 7th grade alchemist to personally participate in the rumors, but it was only barely satisfactory. Although I don't want to say it, I have to say that the Tiandan Pavilion is really not simple. There is a saying that its medicinal pills are cheap and good, and in recent years, it has built a very good reputation by relying on the gimmick of the best medicinal pills. It is impossible to hurt it with just a few rumors. Tong Yangsua shook his head helplessly. "So, isn't it a waste of effort?" Zheng Dongxing frowned. "That's not true. What we can do is to take advantage of the absence of Lin Yi to completely seize the high-grade medicinal pill market. This is at least a very gratifying thing for our medicine sect, but it is not realistic to use this to really hit the Tiandan Pavilion. After all, they have not sold high-grade medicinal pills in the past few years. At most, they are maintaining the original situation." Tong Yangsua smiled bitterly and spread his hands. "And if you think about it, it makes sense. If we could rely on such a small trick to deal with the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, we would not have suffered such a huge setback. We were too naive." This time Zheng Dongxing did not get angry. Instead, he was unexpectedly calm. "What should we do? It should be almost time for Lin Yi's spirit projection. If we wait for him to come back, it will be even more difficult for us to deal with the Tiandan Pavilion." Tong Yangsua could not help but be a little anxious. "You don't have to worry about this. Since we can't deal with the Tiandan Pavilion with commercial means, we might as well find another way." Zheng Dongxing smiled with a profound meaning. "Another way?" Tong Yangsua was puzzled. "That's right. Have you ever thought that the key to dealing with the Heavenly Pill Pavilion isn't in our famed medicine sect or the Heavenly Pill Pavilion? Instead, it's in another place. To be precise, it's in another person, Okuda Prefecture," Zheng Dongxing said, pretending to be profound. "The acting island owner, Okuda?" Tong Yangsua was stunned when he heard this, but he quickly reacted. Indeed, as Zheng Dongxing said, Okuda was the source of the current embarrassing situation. If it were not for this big shot's protection, the Tiandan Pavilion would have been destroyed by them long ago. It would not have been possible for them to survive until now. Do you understand? If we want to deal with the Tiandan Pavilion, if we don't find a way to deal with Okuda, it will only be scratching an itch through our boots. It is destined to be impossible to succeed. Zheng Dongxing advised. Chapter 5147. Therefore, even if the entire Zheng family was involved, they might not be able to deal with such a big shot, let alone a mere Zheng Dongxing. Look at you. Your legs turned to jelly the moment you heard Okuda's name. How are you going to accomplish anything like that? Zheng Dongxing snorted coldly. But that's Okuda's state. Tong Yangsua said with a bitter face. Zheng Dongxing was still a member of the Zheng family, so he had some confidence in speaking to Okuda State. However, he was just a dog of the Zheng family. If he really stood on the opposite side of Okuda State, he was destined to be a proper cannon fodder. Alright. Look at how cowardly you are. Did I say that I will definitely clash with Okuda? Zheng Dongxing curled his lips. Not clash with him? Then how are we going to deal with Tiandan Pavilion? Okuda seems to be on good terms with Lin Yi. I don't think he will just sit back and do nothing, right? Tong Yangsua asked doubtfully. Even if he has the intention to protect the Heavenly Dan Pavilion, don't forget that he is the acting island master. Although this identity represents unparalleled power and status, it also means that his every action must be carried out according to the rules. Otherwise, not only will his prestige be gone, even the Middle Island Elders Guild will not let him off. The corners of Zheng Dongxing's mouth curled into a playful smile. Tong Yangsua was perplexed. It wasn't that he didn't understand what Zheng Dongxing was saying, but it shouldn't be that easy to use the rules of the Island Owners Pavilion to deal with Okuda, right? You don't have to look like that. Although it won't be easy, it's not impossible as long as we have a plan. However, we don't have a strong backer in the government, so we can only keep a low profile for now. Zheng Dongxing paused before he continued. The decisions of the Island Owners Pavilion have always been made through voting. If we can create a voting result that's unfavorable to Tiandan Pavilion, then even Okuda can't go against it. Do you understand? Yes, but Wu Miao is our only reliable ally in the Island Lord's Pavilion, right? Although he's the executive vice Island Lord, his words can't compare to Okuda's. Tong Yangsua was still unsure. That's how it is for now, but the situation will be different soon. Wu Miao has already tried to contact the higher-ups. He will make Nantian Aurora the acting deputy island lord and make me the chief alchemist of the Island Lord Pavilion. You have to know that this position is the same as that of the Island Lord and deputy island lord. We have the right to vote on many things in Middle Island. That way, just the three of us working together will be enough to contend with Okuda State. If we can find a way to rope in a deputy island lord, even Okuda State won't do things their own way for the sake of Tiandan Pavilion. What do you think? I see. Master Zheng is really wise. If this plan succeeds, the Tiandan Pavilion will not be far from being doomed. Tong Yangsua's eyes lit up when he heard this. He had been racking his brains for the past few days, and it could even be said that he didn't want to eat or drink. Now he could finally relax. Just wait and see. Zheng Dongxing stroked his beard proudly. In the Island Lord Pavilion of Middle Island, Tian Chan and Wei Xinjin successfully met with Okuda State and told him about Lin Yi's situation. To be honest, I have been thinking about this recently. It is indeed surprising that young hero Lin hasn't returned after projecting his primordial spirit for so long. However, I have no experience in this kind of thing, so I really don't know much. Okuda State shook his head at the two of them. Tian Chan and Wei Xinjin were speechless. But you don't have to worry. How about this? I'll find Nantian Aurora and ask him. After all, he is the only person who has experience in projecting his primordial spirit. He should know something, Okuda State suggested. Okay, then we'll have to trouble Island Lord Okuda. Tian Chan said gratefully. Actually, they had the same thought in the beginning. However, Nantian Aurora was their enemy, so they wouldn't get any results even if they rashly asked him. Now that Okuda State had come forward on their behalf, it couldn't be any better. You're welcome. Young hero Lin's problem is my problem. Okuda State smiled and immediately ordered someone to summon Nantian Aurora. A moment later, Nantian Aurora rushed over anxiously. Now was a crucial time for Wu Miao to help him operate as the acting deputy island lord. No matter what, he couldn't afford to offend Okuda State. Thus, when he heard Okuda State's summon, he naturally rushed over immediately. However, after hearing Okuda State's question, the corners of Nantian Aurora's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He thought it was something important that concerned his future. He had been complacent along the way and had made all sorts of mental preparations. He didn't expect that Okuda State would actually summon him to answer Tian Chan and Wu Miao's questions. This kind of feeling really made him feel helpless. However, since Okuda State had asked, he didn't dare to not answer. He could only reply, according to my experience, normally 2 months is more or less the limit. As for 4 months, this time is a little too long. I think it's very likely that something unexpected has happened. What? Tian Chan and Wei Xinjin were both shocked at the same time. Let me remind you. You'd better only talk about things that you're confident in. As for those guesses that you're not confident in, don't bring them out to disturb our hearing and hearing. Is that all right, Deputy Dean Nantian? Okuda State said calmly as he tapped his finger on the table. Ah yes. Nantian Aurora hurriedly nodded. His heart was drenched in cold sweat. He had deliberately said that to provoke Tian-chan and Wu Miao, but he didn't expect that he would provoke Okuda State's displeasure. It seemed like it was better for him to be more honest and not act smart. Young hero Lin isn't an ordinary person. The limit for an ordinary person is 2 months. It wouldn't be strange for him to last 4 months or even longer, so the two of you don't have to worry too much. Okuda State comforted them and then said to Nantian Aurora, "Continue." After being beaten down by Okuda State, Nantian Aurora's following words were much more pertinent. "Although I've personally experienced it once, I'm actually not too sure about the situation you're talking about. It's really hard to say if there's no change to the physical body means that there's no problem with the primordial spirit. After all, I haven't tested it before, especially when the time span is so long. I'm afraid there's no such precedent in the whole of history." Hearing this, Tian-chan and Wei Shinjin were both speechless. This guy's words were practically the same as if he hadn't said anything. "Forget it. You can go back first." Okuda State was also very helpless. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to get anything out of Nantian Aurora, so he could only send this guy back first. Looking at Nantian Aurora's back as he left, Wei Shinjin had a bitter expression and sighed. "What should we do now? The other matters are still manageable, but even I can't do anything about this matter. I'm sorry to disappoint you." Okuda State spread his hands helplessly. Chapter 51-48. Although she couldn't get an accurate answer from Nantian Aurora, no good news meant no bad news at the same time. Previously she was confused because she was worried about Lin Yi, but now that she had recovered, she had always been very confident in Lin Yi. Oh, birds of a feather flock together. Miss Tian-chan is indeed young hero Lin's confidante. She has an extraordinary bearing. Okuda looked at Tian-chan with admiration. With his status and strength, ordinary women would tremble in front of him, not daring to breathe too loudly. It was rare to see a woman with such a bearing like Tian-chan. "You flatter me, Okuda Island Master. However, if it's possible, I have another thing that I would like to ask Okuda Island Master for help. I wonder if you can ask the Central Chamber of Commerce to see if they still have the business of sending letters to the secular world?" Tian-chan asked. She believed that nothing had happened to Lin Yi, but she also knew that something must have happened after such a long time. If she could send letters through the Central Chamber of Commerce, she would be able to get to the bottom of it. "It's a small matter. I'll ask for you." Okuda Island immediately understood what Tian-chan meant. Back then, the Central Chamber of Commerce had publicly auctioned the secular world's acknowledgement letters at the Middle Island auction house. That news had spread like wildfire, and even he had heard about it. However, after that there was no further news about it. It seemed that the Chamber of Commerce had already stopped this business. If Tian-chan went to ask about it herself, it would obviously be useless. But if it was him, it would be different. For the sake of him being the acting island master and the Okuda family behind him, the Central Chamber of Commerce might make an exception this time. In fact, as Okuda Island expected, when his message reached the headquarters of the Central Chamber of Commerce, all the higher-ups of the Central Chamber of Commerce were shocked. In fact, similar inquiries like this were not rare, but just like the answers that Lin Yi received before, they were all rejected. However, this time was different. The one who asked was Okuda Island. They could ignore others, but with Okuda Island's background, even the Central Chamber of Commerce didn't dare to look down on him. After all, he was a real super family. In particular, the headquarters of the Central Chamber of Commerce was located in Middle Island, and Okuda State was now the leader of Middle Island. If they made this big boss unhappy, it wouldn't be a good thing for them. Everyone discussed it over and over again, but in the end, they still did not dare to make a decision on their own. They could only report this matter to their superiors. As a result, it was reported level by level and finally, it was passed on to Luanxiaru, the Okuda prefecture. Why would this guy want to send a letter to the secular world? Could it be that the super families of the Heaven Stage Island have already started to set their sights on the secular world? Luanxiaru's subconscious reaction was that the great aristocratic families were about to make a big move. After all, this was the time when the Archaic Alliance would come into being. It wasn't strange for the unfathomable forces of Heaven Stage Island to become restless. But after thinking about it carefully, it was unlikely. The power of the Central Chamber of Commerce was deeply rooted in the secular world. Any force that wanted to develop in the secular world couldn't completely escape their surveillance, including the Heaven Stage Island. Not to mention that if these great aristocratic families really had the ability to develop in the secular world, they wouldn't need to ask them to help send a letter. After pondering for a moment, Wan Xiaoru finally decided, sure, do him a favor and make an exception to send a letter for him. In any case, there have been frequent communications with the secular world recently, adding another letter is not a bad idea. Soon, Okuda State received a positive answer. Tian Chan and the others couldn't help but be overjoyed. After repeatedly thanking Wan Xiaoru, they quickly wrote a letter and sent it to the Central Chamber of Commerce through Okuda State. As for the name of the recipient, it was naturally Lin Yi. Lin Yi? So that's how it is. It's a favor that doesn't cost much. Wan Xiaoru immediately understood, but she was still a little shocked. Even a character like Okuda State was willing to come forward for Lin Yi. Lin Yi's power really couldn't be underestimated. At the same time, Wan Xiaoru looked at the other letter on her desk. This was a letter from the Common World's headquarters. Coincidentally, Wan Xiaoru was asking about Lin Yi at the same time, so they bumped into each other. The Central Chamber of Commerce's headquarters was originally normal, but when a letter suddenly appeared on the transmission platform, and they discovered that it wasn't an internal letter, but an express letter marked with the sender and recipient, the members of the Central Chamber were immediately shocked. What? There's another express letter from Heaven Stage Island? Lan Xiaoru couldn't help but be surprised after receiving the report. The Central Chamber of Commerce's express service was personally stopped by her main body, Wan Xiaoru. Why did it suddenly start again? From the perspective of cost and profit, this business was actually a rare low-cost high-profit business. After all, even without this business, the Central Chamber of Commerce often had to communicate between Heaven Stage Island and the secular world. Moreover, the Central Chamber of Commerce had to regularly purchase goods from the secular world, so this express service was purely incidental. It could be said that there was no cost. But the problem was that in the long run, this was not a good thing for the Central Chamber of Commerce. Because with the powerful strength of the super forces on Heaven Stage Island, once they got the slightest clue, it wasn't unimaginable to take the opportunity to extend their hands into the secular world. The reason why the Central Chamber of Commerce could rise so quickly was because of the complete isolation between Heaven Stage Island and the secular world. If this isolation was broken bit by bit, it would be a fatal blow to the Central Chamber of Commerce. After all, without the gimmicks of technological products, the Central Chamber of Commerce's foundation was much worse than other local chambers of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce. What's more, after the isolation between Heaven Stage Island and the secular world was broken, it would even have a huge impact on the entire strategy of the Central Chamber of Commerce. In contrast, the spiritual jades were just a small profit, not worth mentioning. Others didn't know this inside story, but Lan Xiaoru was clear about it, which was why she was so surprised. Especially when she saw the recipient of the express letter, she was even more shocked. Lin Yi. Lan Xiaoru couldn't help but frown. Along with the express letter there was an explanation. It was a letter written by the main body, Wan Xiaoru. After reading it she finally understood. It turns out that this guy's spirit was projected here. Even the big shots of Heaven Stage Island have to give him face. He's really not simple. Although she had long noticed the existence of Lin Yi, she never thought that Lin Yi could reach such a level. After understanding this she couldn't help but feel a little creeped out. She wanted to use Brother Dafeng to keep Lin Yi hanging, but now it seemed that she was simply playing with fire. Chapter 51-49. However, since Lin Yi was such a figure, Lan Xiaoru did not dare to make a decision on her own. She hurriedly wrote down Lin Yi's situation in the secular world and the progress of the Archean plan in the secular world, and sent them to Heaven Stage Island together, asking if they wanted to deal with Lin Yi. Although Lin Yi's strength was not to be underestimated, he was only a primordial spirit that had been projected over, and not the main body. With the secular world as the center, it was not impossible to deal with him with their current strength. After all, in terms of strength alone, Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng were more than enough. A day later, Lan Xiaoru received a reply from the main body, Wan Xiaoru. After reading it, she could not help but be even more shocked. What is the background of this Lin Yi? He actually wants the main body to take responsibility personally, and even I am not allowed to intervene? If it was just to not let her intervene it would be fine, but the key point was that the letter actually said that not only could this Lin Yi not be dealt with, but absolutely could not let anything happen to him. Otherwise, Professor Li would be under a lot of pressure. Lin Yi was a key figure related to the whole situation, and must not die for the time being. In the letter, Wan Xiaoru also said that if there was a chance, it was best to think of a way to rope him in. Even if it could not really rope him in, even if it was just a superficial show of affection, it was best to temporarily maintain a good relationship with Lin Yi, and must not rashly start a conflict, let alone magnify the conflict. This was an absolute order, and any slight violation would be severely punished. The letter made Lan Xiaoru break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, she did not make a decision on her own and do anything stupid, or she would have made a huge mess. Compared to the main battlefield on Professor Li's side, the Archean plan that she was leading now was not worth mentioning at all. If she really ruined Professor Li's plan, it would be a crime that could not be redeemed even if she died 10,000 times. However, Lan Xiaoru did not point out Lin Yi's true identity in the letter. This matter was of great importance, and with Lan Xiaoru's current status, she did not have the authority to know such a confidential matter. Therefore Lan Xiaoru could not help but feel a little baffled. However, since Lan Xiaoru had said so, she could only do as she was told. She immediately passed on the instructions from the higher-ups, especially to Dr. Glasses immediately. Although she had only planned to use Brother Dafeng as a mole, to keep Lin Yi in suspense, she could not obey the orders of the Emperor when she was out in the field. If something unexpected happened, Dr. Glasses might change his strategy at the last minute. After all, he did have the strength to do so. Time passed day by day in the transfer region of the archipelago. Regardless of whether it was those prospective disciples who had just joined the sect or those disciples who were already at the foundation establishment stage, everyone was doing their best to cultivate. The only difference was that the former did it for the sake of being able to stay, while the latter did it for the sake of the primordial refinement. Looking at the tense atmosphere of everyone's hard work, Lin Yi felt as if he had returned to the time when he first arrived at the northern island. It was the same back then and everything was still vivid in his mind. Just thinking about it made him feel nostalgic. Of course, with Lin Yi's current situation he didn't need to train like the others. It was just a projection of his primordial spirit, and before he could think of a way to return to the golden core stage, training was useless. Instead of that, he might as well take the opportunity to familiarize himself with the various abilities of the primordial spirit. On the other hand, while Lin Yi had given them sufficient foundation establishment pills, there was no way for them to directly increase their strength. Their strength didn't come from their own hard work, and their foundation wasn't strong enough. As a result, their leveling speed wasn't as fast as expected. This was something that could not be helped. Most people would start to break through the barrier after reaching the peak of Heaven Stage Great Circle, but they had already reached the peak of Heaven Stage Great Circle 3 years ago. Since then they had been stuck in this realm without making any progress. Coupled with the lack of foundation, it was much more difficult for them to break through to foundation establishment than ordinary people. Fortunately, their foundation wasn't strong enough, and they had the golden core to make up for it. Plus, this was a transfer island with thick spiritual energy. Just from the external conditions alone, they were already blessed. Plus, there was no lack of people with good potential, and while not everyone seemed to be able to break through successfully, a few of them were close to breaking through. It wouldn't be long before they heard good news. At the same time, the operations of the bespectacled doctor were also progressing. However, after making a good start with Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng, they did not make much progress in the past month. At least, it was much worse than what they had expected. After all, they had to move in the dark, and they didn't dare to be too obvious in order to avoid attracting attention. From locking on to potential development targets, to gradually getting closer and closer to them, and finally to formally recruiting them, they had to be very careful with every step in between. One mistake and the matter would be leaked, and that would be very bad. It's been a whole month and we've only managed to recruit 2 people. This is too slow. Mysterious man in black, aren't we being a little too careful? Dafeng Bro complained. This is a serious matter. We can't be too careful. Don't be impatient. The glasses professor was the one who was most eager to achieve something, but he was surprisingly patient this time. In fact, it was mainly because Lan Xiaoru had specifically reminded him when he went out to report the progress last time. Since they absolutely couldn't provoke Lin Yi, they couldn't reveal any flaws in this kind of poaching. Otherwise, even if they did not poach Lin Yi's people, it was likely to develop into a head-on confrontation with Lin Yi. That would go against their original intention. But if we continue to develop at this rate, when will our manpower really grow? It's not as good as when we were catching lone experts outside. I'm afraid it'll be hard to explain if the higher-ups ask, right? Dafeng Bro asked curiously. It's okay. That was then and this is now. It's much more difficult to move around here than outside. We've already expected this and the higher-ups won't blame us. Moreover, our center hasn't really shown our true strength so far. It's not easy to rope people in with just a few words. Let's take it slow. The glasses professor sighed. Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng were special cases. They were both disabled, and it was naturally easy to rope them in when they were completely disheartened. However, the other disciples of the Archaic Alliance were different. Even if they had a grudge against the Archaic Alliance, it was not so easy to rope them in. Unless the person sent to persuade them had a close relationship with them, it would be difficult to persuade them. Chapter 5150. As for the other one, it was Jing Yueming from the Thousand Blades faction, who was recruited by Jing Taiyang. They were cousins, and Jing Yueming's situation in the Thousand Blades faction was much worse than Jing Taiyang's. He was basically on the verge of being kicked out of the faction at any time, so it was easy for Jing Taiyang to persuade him. Apart from these two, the other targets were still at the stage of getting close to them. They were still very far away from actually recruiting them. This was very normal. After all, everyone was usually cultivating. Even fellow disciples rarely had the chance to gather together, let alone truly friendly ones. In such a situation, the precondition of having a grudge against the Archaic Alliance was naturally very low. Moreover, the people of the Archaic Alliance were extremely wary. If one didn't have a good relationship with them, then it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It was reasonable to only be able to rope in 2 people a month. Time flew by. 3 months had passed since the prospective disciples entered the transfer island. On this day, Enchanted gathered everyone on the small island where the teleportation formation was located. Although the island was not big and was only a small place compared to the real islands, it was more than enough to accommodate hundreds of people. After everyone had arrived, Enchanted said loudly, "Everyone, 3 months have passed. I believe all the prospective disciples of the far ancient sects have become familiar with the environment here, and their strength has made great progress. Many of you are on the verge of breaking through. I congratulate you, but you still have to keep up the good work and strive to break through the Foundation realm as soon as possible. Don't let down the expectations of your senior brothers who lead your sections." "Yes," everyone replied in unison. "There's one more thing which is also the main reason why I gathered everyone here today. After such a long time, I believe everyone should have heard about the Archaic trials, right?" Enchanted asked. Everyone nodded. This wasn't a secret. Even these prospective disciples from the mortal world could learn about it from their senior apprentice brothers or other senior apprentice brothers. After all, the primeval smelting trial was something that all disciples of the Archaic Alliance looked forward to the most. Every few days someone would mention it, so it was impossible for them not to know. "Very well. So from tomorrow onwards we will prepare for the Archaic trials," Enchanted announced. "Prepare? What preparations?" Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Could it be that he was reminding everyone to properly increase their strength before the primeval trials began? It was said that this time's primeval trials were extraordinary. If one's strength wasn't enough, then rashly joining was no different from courting death. Of course, for these prospective disciples, the most important thing was to break through to Foundation establishment. Otherwise, they wouldn't be considered members of the Primeval Alliance. As for the primeval trials, that was even more nonsense. Don't get me wrong. The preparation that I'm talking about isn't about your personal affairs, but the preparation of all of us. To enter the primordial trial, we need spiritual jades to activate the teleportation formation. This teleportation formation has been sealed for a long time. If we want to activate it again, we will need a huge amount of spiritual jades. If we can't meet this condition, the teleportation formation won't be activated. Then our chances of entering the primordial trial will be ruined, Enchanted explained to the crowd. "Spiritual jade? Where can I get this?" Now, not only the prospective disciples, but also the disciples of the primordial sects were also looking at each other. They weren't the higher-ups of their sects, nor did they have any powerful background. How could they possibly get something as rare as spiritual jades? Moreover, it wasn't a small amount. Don't worry. According to the records of the Primordial Alliance, there's a spiritual mine under the sea of this archipelago. Although it's not that easy to mine, I believe it shouldn't be a problem for all of you. Therefore, from tomorrow onwards, everyone here will have to volunteer to mine the spiritual jades at the spiritual mine under the sea. Otherwise, you won't be qualified to participate in the primordial trial. Do you understand? Enchanted said loudly. Elder Exen, do we have to confiscate all the spiritual jades that are mined? Someone raised his hand and asked. This was also a question that almost all the disciples were concerned about. Even if the primordial trials were disregarded, just the spiritual mine at the bottom of the sea was already quite a big temptation to them. If the spiritual jades that were mined could belong to them, most of them would definitely not be lazy. That's not it. Considering everyone's enthusiasm, as long as there's more than one spiritual jade mined on a day, the rest will belong to each of you. Enchanted smiled and said. The rules sounded rough and seemed to have a lot of loopholes. However, it was only a stopgap measure after all. It was enough to motivate everyone. He believed that they would be able to collect a lot of spiritual jades in the end. Sure enough, everyone's eyes lit up after hearing the rule. The condition didn't sound harsh at all, but it was still very tempting. However, there were still a few people who frowned. Many of them were on the verge of breaking through. It was a waste of time to participate in the undersea mining at this time. After all, mining might not bring them any harvest. A hard day's work might still be in vain. Of course, in order to take care of everyone's cultivation, the undersea mining will be divided into 2 groups. They will take turns every 3 days. If anyone doesn't want to go when it's their turn, they can be exempted once as long as they pay 1 spiritual jade. Does anyone have any objections? Enchanted asked. Everyone shook their heads. This arrangement was already very humane. It would be difficult to raise any objections. Moreover, if they didn't participate, they would not be qualified to participate in the primordial trial. No one dared to take this risk. Wait. At this moment, Shui Jianfeng suddenly stood out and glanced at Lin Yi's group with ill intentions. Since everyone is going, shouldn't these people go as well? They're not disciples of the Archaic Alliance in name, and they didn't say that they had to participate in the primordial trial. Naturally, they can choose not to go. Enchanted shook his head. Lingshan and Wu Qintian were on the verge of breaking through to Foundation establishment, and naturally they wouldn't go to the undersea mining. Plus, as Enchanted said, they didn't plan on participating in the primordial trial. The undersea mining this time had nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them? How could it be nothing to do with them? They're taking the island's resources for nothing, and when it's time for them to contribute, they don't give a shit. That's not going to convince the others, is it? Shui Jianfeng humphed coldly. But Enchanted still wanted to retort, but the other disciples of the archaic sects were already grumbling. They all had to work hard to mine, and only Lingshan and the others were free. It was indeed annoying. At that moment, Lin Yi suddenly stopped Enchanted and walked up to Shui Jianfeng under everyone's gaze. You want all of us to go mine, right? That's right. Shui Jianfeng said confidently. Alright, you're right. Lin Yi nodded and threw out a huge box. The moment he opened it, everyone's eyes were blinded. It was filled with spirit jade. This. Shui Jianfeng and the others were tongue-tied, speechless for a while. Here, these are all leaf slips. If it's not enough, you can ask me for more. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Lingshan and the others had quite a number of people, but 1 piece was enough for them to be excused once. This huge box of spirit jade was enough for them to take a few months of leave. Chapter 51-51. Everyone looked at the huge box of spiritual jades and gulped, including Enchanted, who already knew that Lin Yi was rich. He couldn't help but be stunned again. Even Bing Wuqing, who had been expressionless, showed a little bit of emotion. She was not an ordinary disciple who had never seen the world, but even she was shocked by Lin Yi's generosity. This guy is really not simple. Bing Wuqing couldn't help but take another look at Lin Yi. Since coming out of the Archaic Alliance, this was the first time she met Lin Yi. She only knew his name because of what happened to Lung Lung. The only person she hated and feared was Lin Dongfang. As for Lin Yi, he was nothing in her eyes. To be precise, he didn't have any sense of existence. However, from this moment on, Lin Yi had some status in her eyes. Not to mention other things, just the fact that he could take out so many spiritual jades at once was already an impressive thing. This was a manifestation of strength. Of course, it was just some status. Not to mention that he was now a late-stage golden elixir master. Even if he was an early-stage golden elixir master, he wouldn't really take a perfect foundation establishment master seriously. At most, he was just a slightly stronger ant. If that's the case, there shouldn't be any more objections, right? Enchanted said to Shui Jianfeng. Everyone was looking at him as if they were watching a joke. Shui Jianfeng's face immediately turned red. He wanted to continue making things difficult, but that big chest of spirit jades was really too eye-catching. Money makes the world go round. What kind of nonsense could he say in this kind of situation? Very well. Next, I'll announce the group list. The first group will start mining in the afternoon, and 3 days later, it will be the second group. Since there are no objections, let's go with this, Enchanted announced at last. Nominally, Lin Yi and the others were in the first group like the other disciples of the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. It was just that Ling Shan and Wu Qintian had already used the huge box of spiritual jades to apply for leave. After a while, Enchanted was ready to lead the first group to the underwater mine. However, he was stunned when he turned around. Uncle Master, are you going down too? I don't have anything to do anyway. I'll follow you down to take a look. Linny nodded. He might look like he didn't care, but he did care about this mine quite a bit. After all, the people from the Archaic Alliance wouldn't be staying here for too long. Once the training in the common world was over, the mine would be ownerless, and Ling Shan would be able to organize people to continue mining. Of course, the premise was that the quality of the underwater spiritual mine must be high enough. If it was the kind of waste or that could not produce a few pieces of spiritual jades in half a month, it would be useless. After all, Linny was not short of spiritual jades. Oh, got it. Enchanted immediately understood Lin Yi's intention. After all, the benefits should be kept within the family. Instead of letting the spiritual mineral mine benefit others, it was better to let this grand uncle master benefit from it. Lin Yi smiled faintly, not explaining. The archipelago wasn't deep in the sea, and the spiritual mineral mine was almost on the extension of one of the islands. The water depth was only 10 meters or so. With diving equipment, this level of depth was nothing to a normal person, let alone these strong practitioners. Of course, Enchanted wouldn't provide them with any diving equipment. He only had some basic mining tools, so they had to rely on themselves to breathe. It seemed a bit troublesome, but it wasn't a problem that was hard to overcome. Practitioners had a long breath, and as long as they mastered the technique of breathing underwater, they could stay at the bottom of the sea for a long time. Under Enchanted lead, the group went into the sea and soon arrived at the spiritual mineral mine. Linny looked around and was disappointed. It looks like even if it's not a waste or it's not far from it. Linny shook his head. Although he hadn't officially excavated it, he had mining experience in the North Island, so it wasn't difficult to distinguish good ores from waste ores. Judging from the concentration of spiritual qi in this spiritual mineral mine, if one was lucky, one might be able to pick up 2 or 3 pieces of spiritual jade a day. Otherwise, it would be difficult to pick up even 1 piece. It wasn't too bad for the other disciples who had to participate in voluntary work, but it was worthless in Lin Yi's eyes. After saying goodbye to Enchanted, Linny was ready to leave. When he came to a deserted place, he habitually transformed into the form of the primordial spirit. This was his main practice in recent months. Not only could he increase his immediate combat capability, but he could also master all kinds of primordial spirit skills when he returned to the Heaven Stage Island in the future. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, as soon as he returned to the sea, he saw Shui Jianfeng and another person slacking off by breathing. However, Linny was now in the form of the primordial spirit. As long as he was a little careful, ordinary people wouldn't be able to find him under the cover of the seawater. Even Shui Jianfeng, an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, was no exception. Brother Qin Yuan, have you thought about what I told you last time? Shui Jianfeng asked. The 2 of them deliberately chose the most remote place. At this time, only the 2 of them were breathing on the sea within 100 meters. In addition, he had the perception of an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, so he wasn't afraid that someone would come close and eavesdrop. However, he didn't know that Linny was floating behind him. The other person hesitated and didn't answer. Qin Yuan? Linny was slightly stunned when he heard the name. He didn't recognize him before, but he had some impression of the name. This person was a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island. His strength was in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He had seen him several times, but he didn't talk to him. However, since Qin Yuan was a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island, with the current tense relationship between Shui Jianfeng and the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island, why would this guy be with Shui Jianfeng? After just a moment of confusion, Linny quickly understood. This was most likely because Shui Jianfeng wanted to secretly draw Qin Yuan to his side on behalf of the center. With the convenience of practicing the primordial spirit skills, Linny had been monitoring the movements of the Glasses Doctor and the others almost every day recently. Naturally, he knew their movements like the back of his hand. Even Qianlong of the Ancient 5 Elements sect and Jing Yueming of the Thousand Blade sect had been put on the key monitoring list by Linny. Although he didn't plan to provoke the center for the time being, he had to at least get hold of the list just in case. Chapter 51-52. On the other hand, Qin Yuan from the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island had stayed together for a few days during the sect exchange. They got along quite well. The most important thing was that Qin Yuan once complained to him about the unfair distribution of cultivation resources. Moreover, Qin Yuan's dissatisfaction with the sect didn't diminish. Instead, he became more and more resentful. Qin Yuan was a perfect target to win over. Seeing that both Bing Wuqing and Jing Taiyang had managed to rope in people to their side, and only he had not made any progress, it would be a lie if Xue Jianfeng said that he was not anxious at all. In terms of ambition, he was far more ambitious than Jing Taiyang, so he was naturally anxious to achieve success. Are you still hesitating at a time like this? Seeing Qin Yuan's expression, Xue Jianfeng couldn't help but feel a little anxious. He tried to persuade him patiently, something happened to your uncle. You don't have any background in the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. I don't need to tell you how many cultivation resources you need to reach the Elixir Realm, do I? With your current situation in the Green Cloud sect of the North Island, do you think you have a chance, Brother Qin Yuan? No. Qin Yuan shook his head decisively. At his level, the most important thing was to break through to the Golden Elixir Realm. However, without sufficient cultivation resources, especially without a Golden Elixir or Golden Elixir, it would be a fool's dream. That's why I said a tree will die when it moves and a man will live when he moves. Since you know that there's no future if you continue like this, why do you still insist on hanging yourself on a tree until your death? Xue Jianfeng earnestly advised. That's true, but isn't he going to betray the sect? Qin Yuan still couldn't make up his mind. Even though he had a deep grudge against the Green Cloud sect of the North Island, the education he had received since he was a child was deep-rooted. To the orthodox concept, betraying the sect was almost intolerable. Most people didn't have the guts, and Qin Yuan was no exception. It's not as serious as you make it out to be. Right now, you're just secretly relying on them. There's no need for you to do anything to betray the sect. No one will know. Xue Jianfeng hurriedly dispelled his doubts and tempted him. Think about it, as long as you follow me, I guarantee you'll be able to break through to the Golden Core Realm in a short period of time. At the very least, you'll be able to reach Foundation Paragon in an extremely short period of time. This is equivalent to tens of years of bitter cultivation. Really? How short is extremely short? Qin Yuan's eyes lit up. One day. Xue Jianfeng was delighted. The last time he said this, Qin Yuan did not have such an excited reaction. This meant that he was not far from success. What? One day. Qin Yuan was so shocked that he almost sank into the water. He had to swallow a mouthful of water before he could recover. Brother Qin Yuan, do you know what level I am at right now? Xue Jianfeng suddenly asked in a pretentious manner. Isn't it Foundation Establishment Great Circle? Qin Yuan was stunned. He only knew that Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng had suddenly consumed elixirs to recover. Like the others, he did not know their true abilities. Xue Jianfeng snorted proudly. Taking advantage of the fact that there was no one around, he released his aura without holding back. Qin Yuan was immediately stunned. He stammered, Golden Core Stage. That's right, it's the Golden Core Realm. Now, you should understand what it means to follow me, right? Xue Jianfeng smiled proudly. All right, I'll go with you. Qin Yuan immediately nodded without hesitation. He had already been convinced. Now that he had seen Xue Jianfeng as a living example, there was no reason for him to hesitate. Very good, but not now. Leaving without permission will arouse suspicion. Let's wait for the rotation. Xue Jianfeng was overjoyed. 3 days later, Xue Jianfeng brought Qin Yuan to Professor Glasses. After consuming the improved elixirs produced by the center, his abilities skyrocketed and he quickly became a Foundation Establishment Great Circle expert. However, he did not successfully break through to the Golden Core Stage. After all, even Xue Jianfeng had only broken through from Foundation Establishment Great Circle to the early stage of the Golden Core Stage. Qin Yuan was not as talented as him, so it was normal for him to fail to break through to the Golden Core Stage. Of course, even if he did not succeed in breaking through to the Golden Core Stage, as long as he consumed the improved elixirs produced by the center, Qin Yuan would be on the same boat as Bing Wuqing and the others. He would not be able to get off the boat even if he wanted to. After being on the boat, although Qin Yuan was reluctant, he had no choice but to come back and find a way to secretly recruit other seniors and juniors to join the center. Otherwise, if Professor Glasses did not give him the antidote, his life would be in danger. This is a little unreasonable. Linny saw all of this. With the intention of not interfering with each other's business, he could turn a blind eye to the fact that Professor Glasses and the others secretly recruited disciples of other far ancient sects. However, now that even the North Island's Green Cloud sect was being targeted, he could not continue to sit back and do nothing. After all, the North Island's Green Cloud sect had a deep relationship with him. They could be considered half one of his own. If Qin Yuan was the only one secretly betraying the center, it would be fine. However, the point was that he would continue to recruit other seniors and juniors. If he allowed this to continue, a large number of people might suffer in the end. That would be a huge joke. Lin Yi wanted to get rid of Qin Yuan, but he was afraid of killing him and alerting the enemy. After thinking for a long time, he finally decided to capture him first. On this day, Qin Yuan was looking for a candidate among his seniors and juniors. He found a junior that he had a good relationship with. Just as he was about to strike up a conversation with him, he was suddenly stopped by Lin Yi. "Granduncle, what can I do for you?" Qin Yuan was a little flustered. After all, he had no interaction with Lin Yi. For Lin Yi to suddenly call him, that made him feel an inexplicable sense of foreboding. "Oh, I need your help with a small matter. Can you come with me?" Lin Yi said calmly. "Help? Do you want me to call Uncle Xan?" Qin Yuan asked cautiously. "There is no need. He is busy supervising the seabed mining. Don't bother him with such a small matter. You can do it alone," Lin Yi said. He did not give Qin Yuan a chance to refuse. He turned around and left. This. Qin Yuan hesitated for a moment. In the end, he bit the bullet and followed Lin Yi. As a traitor, he was most afraid of being seen through. In the face of Lin Yi's request, even Xan Yijia had to be careful with him. If he rejected Lin Yi's request, it would definitely be suspicious. For the time being, he could only take one step at a time. Fortunately, he was now a master with the great completion of the Foundation Establishment realm. Even if he could not defeat Lin Yi, who was also with the great completion of the Foundation Establishment realm, he would at least be able to protect himself. There should not be any accidents. Chapter 51-53. What? Qin Yuan was scared out of his wits when he heard that. He was horrified. How did this guy know about the center's improved version of the pill? I've already made it so clear. What's the point of continuing to play dumb? Lin Yi could not help but laugh. How did you know? Qin Yuan asked subconsciously. His joining of the center was a very secretive matter. Other than the glasses professor, Brother Dafeng, and Shui Jianfeng who developed him, there should not be a fourth person who knew. However, from Lin Yi's tone, why did it seem like he knew everything? The archipelago is only so big. Do you think it's flawless? Lin Yi studied the man from head to toe. At first glance, the man looked honest and kind, but it was a little deceitful. A line popped up in Lin Yi's mind. Who would have thought that a guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes would betray them? I don't understand what you mean. After Qin Yuan reacted, he carefully looked around. He did not see anyone, but he did not give up. He pretended to be calm and asked in a deep voice, "What do you want?" You're still pretending to not want to leave behind any evidence. I really admire your spirit. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Lin Yi nodded. The expression on his face was very playful. He was just short of saying that Qin Yuan's shamelessness reminded him of his youthful charm. "Granduncle, I only call you granduncle out of respect for your seniority. This does not mean that I can tolerate your unreasonable behavior. You'd better behave yourself." Qin Yuan frowned. He checked again and again to make sure that no one would pass by. The island was not big, but there were less than 30 people gathered on the island. Moreover, they were gathered at the Two Spirit Eyes. Normally, no one would pass by such a remote place. Interesting. What if I don't behave myself? Lin Yi laughed fearlessly. Then don't blame me for being rude. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Yuan attacked without any warning. He used his strongest attack without holding anything back. If Xan Yijia was on the island, he would not have the guts to do so. He might really be forced into a corner by Lin Yi. However, Xan Yijia was far away at the spiritual mine, so he still had a chance. As long as he killed Lin Yi before anyone found out, he would be able to do so without anyone noticing. Qin Yuan's voice was cold. His body was like a snake, and Qin Yuan's speed was extraordinary. In the blink of an eye, he was next to Lin Yi. He used a whip kick as a feint. After he attracted Lin Yi's attention, he immediately used a hidden elbow. This was his most proud move. Once he hit, he could easily break the Qi defense and crush the enemy's bones. He had succeeded. Seeing that Lin Yi did not move, Qin Yuan suddenly thought that Lin Yi had been shocked by his sudden attack. He could not help but feel happy. As long as the first move of the bone-crushing kill hit, He could immediately use the second move, the third move, and the fourth move until all of his opponent's bones were crushed. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi suddenly said, "Oh? The concept of this move is not bad. However, when you use it like this, it is really a mess." "You are talking big." Qin Yuan laughed coldly. At that moment, his elbow attack was only a hair's breadth away from Lin Yi's back. He was about to hit Lin Yi. This so-called Grandmaster was nothing more than this. However, at the last moment, Lin Yi's body moved an inch to the right. He used the vital energy spray technique to put some distance between himself and Qin Yuan. His entire body immediately became like a snake, twisting strangely and extremely fast. This is... Qin Yuan was dumbfounded. He could not help but have a bad feeling about this. Why did his opponent's movement seem so familiar? Before he could react, Lin Yi had already turned the tables on him. He used a whip kick as a feint, then followed it up with a hidden elbow attack. Crack. Qin Yuan quickly heard the sound of his ribs breaking. His entire body was instantly drowned in pain. He fell to the ground powerlessly. As he spat out blood, he struggled to say, "Bone? Crush? Kill?" That is why I said that this kind of martial arts technique falling into your hands is like casting pearls before swine. Don't you feel bad for it? Lin Yi spread his hands. Qin Yuan was speechless. Before this, he had thought that the other party was just boasting. However, the other party had only watched it once and was able to imitate the Bone Crusher kill. The power of the Bone Crusher kill was much stronger than the original version. How could he argue with that? Qin Yuan was shocked. They were both experts who had completed the foundation establishment stage. Why was there such a huge difference in power? Qin Yuan wanted to cry, but he had no tears. If you want to fight or kill, just do it quickly. Qin Yuan resisted the urge to spit out more blood. He was paralyzed on the ground as he spoke weakly. Although he had been secretly lured by Xue Jianfeng to join the group, he still showed some courage in the face of death. If it was as simple as fighting and killing, I would have done it a long time ago. Why would I waste so much time talking to a traitor like you? Lin Yi looked at him condescendingly. What else do you want? Qin Yuan's heart went cold when he looked at him like that. The courage he had just displayed disappeared. Nothing much. Doing some research might not be a bad thing for you. As Lin Yi spoke, he suddenly squatted down and placed his hand on Qin Yuan's head. A warm wave of true energy flowed into Qin Yuan's body. Qin Yuan was scared out of his wits. It was a very dangerous thing to have true energy forcefully inserted into one's body. Furthermore, this was the head, which was the weakest part of his body. He didn't dare move. If his opponent's true energy ran amok, even if he didn't die on the spot, he would become an idiot. However, to Qin Yuan's surprise, his opponent's true energy didn't run amok. It didn't destroy his body. Instead, it gave him an indescribable feeling of comfort. It was as if it was searching for something in his body. A moment later, the warm vital energy entered Qin Yuan's dantian. What shocked Qin Yuan the most was that the vital energy forcefully forced out the poisonous gas that came with the improved version of the elixir. This was the main thing that the center was relying on to threaten them. From the moment he discovered this poisonous gas, he had been trying to force it out and neutralize it. In fact, it wasn't just him. Xue Jianfeng and the others were doing the same. However, including Bing Wuqing, who was the strongest among them, none of them were able to force this deeply hidden poisonous gas out, let alone neutralize it. Chapter 51-54. Qin Yuan nervously observed what was happening in his body. He did not even dare to breathe. He was shocked and confused. What was Lin Yi trying to do when he had suddenly taken out the poison gas that had been hidden so deeply? What happened next made Qin Yuan's heart jump out of his throat. Lin Yi's pure qi was in his dantian, and it was fighting against the poison. The two pure qi were very strong, and it made Qin Yuan's dantian turn upside down. Qin Yuan wanted to die, but he couldn't. He was in so much pain that he rolled around on the ground and screamed. Qin Yuan was in so much pain that he wanted to die. After an unknown amount of time, Qin Yuan felt as if his entire body was about to fall apart. The unparalleled pain finally faded away. After surviving the disaster, Qin Yuan's entire body was soaked in cold sweat. His entire person was exhausted. It looks like your willpower is not bad. You were able to survive this. Lin Yi was a little surprised. Seeing that Qin Yuan was confused, he said, "Since you are still alive, take a closer look at the situation in your body." Qin Yuan was stunned. When he looked at his elixir field again, his face was filled with joy. Lin Yi's warm true qi had been slowly retracted. The poison gas in the improved elixir field had disappeared. This was not surprising to Lin Yi. His 5 elements killing aura was almost invincible among all true Chis. Even at the level of the 5 poison dragon, it was still very useful. Although the poison gas in the improved elixir field was difficult to deal with, it could not escape the fate of being killed. Thank you, sect uncle. Qin Yuan quickly came back to his senses and kowtowed to Lin Yi. He had thought that he was going to die. He had not expected things to turn around. Lin Yi had gotten rid of the poison gas that had threatened his life. It was very unexpected. Why are you thanking me? Lin Yi found it funny. Of course this is to thank Martial Granduncle for saving my life. In the future, this disciple will definitely follow Martial Granduncle's lead and will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Qin Yuan quickly expressed his loyalty. He was not a fool. Lin Yi's intentions were very clear. After discovering his betrayal, he did not kill him. Instead, he helped him get rid of the poison gas. Without a doubt, Lin Yi wanted to use him for himself. The first time Qin Yuan was dragged into this mess by Shui Jianfeng, he was still hesitant. However, this time he was very decisive. Since he could betray the Green Cloud sect of the North Island, now that the poison gas was gone, he could easily betray the center and join Lin Yi's faction. After all, if Lin Yi wanted him dead, it would be too easy. He didn't even need to do it himself. One word would be enough. Oh, you seem to have misunderstood. I have no intention of saving you. I'm just doing my research. Now that I am done with my research, it is time to send you on your way. Lin Yi curled his lips. What? Let's go? Qin Yuan was scared out of his wits again. That day his emotions were like a roller coaster. No matter how strong his heart was, it could not withstand such torment. Qin Yuan no longer cared about his pride. He kowtowed to Lin Yi and begged for his life. At this time, his pride had been worn away by the pain. He was willing to do anything to live. Qin Yuan was already half dead from the torture. After begging for a long time, he was lying on the ground, unable to get up. Seeing him gasping for breath, Lin Yi said, "Fine. I've always been a soft-hearted person. Since you're so sincere, I might as well spare your life." Qin Yuan looked at Lin Yi. "Really? Thank you, Martial Granduncle, for saving my life. I will never forget your kindness." Qin Yuan was overjoyed. But Lin Yi only said 3 words and Qin Yuan's heart was in his throat again. He continued, "I can't let you go just like that. To be honest, I don't trust a guy like you who has a history of betrayal, not to mention that you've betrayed us twice in a row." Qin Yuan's face turned red when he heard this. Although it was the truth, a man needed his pride. Furthermore, he had just betrayed the sect not long ago. His skin was not thick enough to be impervious to fire and water. However, in order to survive, he quickly asked, "Please tell me." "It is very simple. The people in the center do not trust you, so they use poison gas to control you. I do not trust you either, so I have to put a curse on you," Lin Yi coldly said. He was going to use the same method he had used on Wei Shinjin. This was the only way to deal with people like Qin Yuan. If he did not, he would be bitten by Qin Yuan sooner or later. Curse. Qin Yuan's eyes were wide open. He could not help but scream in his heart. He had escaped from the wolf's den and entered the tiger's cave. "You do not want to? Then I will not force you. I will send you on your way." Lin Yi looked indifferent. Seeing that Lin Yi was about to attack, Qin Yuan panicked. He quickly begged for mercy. No. I am willing. I am willing. This is what I should do. Martial Granduncle, please put a curse on me." Qin Yuan wanted to cry, but he had no tears. Lin Yi wanted to put a curse on him, but he had to beg for mercy. Wasn't this fucking cheap? Lin Yi thought it was funny. Just as he was about to put the curse on Qin Yuan, a voice suddenly came from behind him. Wait. Qin Yuan was overjoyed. His savior was here. However, before he could start to feel happy, the voice said again, "With your level of skill, you have the nerve to cast goo on others. Let me do it lest you make a mistake and embarrass yourself. In terms of attainments in goo, you are still worlds apart." Thump. Qin Yuan's knees turned to jelly, and he fell to the ground again. This roller coaster ride was full of ups and downs. His heart could not take it. The person who spoke was Lin Dongfang. Lin Yi turned to look at him and asked, "Why are you here?" "Nonsense," Lin Dongfang said angrily. "You made this guy cry like a ghost and disturbed my afternoon nap. How could I not be here? We are 7 or 8 miles away. How could I disturb your afternoon nap?" Lin Yi was speechless. Although Qin Yuan was tormented quite badly just now, he was holding back his cries and howls. His voice wasn't that loud. It would be strange if he could still affect Lin Dongfang like that. "I have good ears and eyes." Lin Dongfang snorted and casually patted Qin Yuan's shoulder. Then he said, "Done. Done." Qin Yuan could not help but be stunned. He thought that the curse would be very painful. He did not expect Lin Dongfang to casually pat him and it was over. Chapter 51-55. Impressive. Others might not have been able to tell, but Lin Yi was a knowledgeable person. He was shocked by Lin Dongfang's move. Old Lin was old Lin. He was unfathomable. Learn from him in the future, kid. Lin Dongfang glanced at him, then looked at Qin Yuan on the ground. What do you plan to do with this guy? Qin Yuan's heart trembled when he heard that. Lin Yi's next answer would determine his life and death. Although Lin Dongfang wouldn't kill him directly, and Lin Yi had just promised to spare his life, if Lin Yi asked him to do something that he didn't want to do, he would still be dead in the end. What do I do? Of course, I have to go back to where I came from. Otherwise, all my efforts would have been wasted. Lin Yi grinned. Go back to where? Qin Yuan was stunned. Ask yourself. The center worked so hard to raise you from a foundation establishment late stage to a foundation establishment full mastery, shouldn't you repay them? Lin Yi said with interest. How do I repay them? Qin Yuan was confused. Simple. You just have to continue working for them. Make them feel like they didn't find the wrong person, Lin Yi said. That's it. Qin Yuan looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Even if he used his toes to think, he knew that Lin Yi didn't want him to continue working for the center. Oh, I understand now. Master, you want me to be a spy for you. Is that what you're trying to say? Lin Yi nodded. Wrong. Lin Yi shook his head. Huh. Qin Yuan was dumbfounded. He said weakly, didn't you want me to be your spy? What do you want me to do? Other than being a spy, he couldn't think of any other reason Lin Yi would let him live. This was the best arrangement for him. After all, if the center found out about his betrayal again, he wouldn't be far from death. To be precise, being a spy is the basic condition for your survival, Lin Yi said. If you want to fight for your future, you have to put in more effort. Future? Do I still have a future? Qin Yuan was shocked. Now that he had been reduced to such a state, he felt that it was a blessing from the heavens to be able to keep his life. He did not dare to think about more. He did not even dare to think about his future. Don't you need it? Do you think you'll be satisfied just because you've reached the foundation establishment great circle? Forget it then, pretend I didn't say anything. Lin Yi said casually. No, Qin Yuan hurriedly said. Although I am not ambitious, I am ambitious. If there is anything you need me to do, just tell me. I will do my best to help you, Qin Yuan hurriedly said. That sounds pretty good. Alright then, go and trick Jing Yueming into coming here. Let him come here. Remember, don't let anyone know. Lin Yi immediately said. This was the real reason why he had deliberately kept Qin Yuan alive. If Qin Yuan was just a spy, it would be worthless to him. After all, he already had Big Brother Feng, who was of a higher level. Qin Yuan's greatest value was to secretly instigate a rebellion. Jing Yuming? Who is Jing Yuming? Qin Yuan was stunned. In order to ensure secrecy, the people in the center only contacted each other one-to-one. Apart from the people who were online, under normal circumstances, only the Glasses Professor and Big Brother Feng knew. The others did not know each other and they did not meet each other. Therefore he did not know Jing Yueming at all. Similarly, Jing Yueming did not know him. He is a disciple of the Thousand Blades sect. He is also a member of the center who secretly defected to the center, Lin Yi said. Although there were more than 20 Archaic Alliance experts under the control of the center, the number of targets he could instigate was very limited. After all, Jing Taiyang and the other 15 Foundation establishment experts had been brainwashed by the center's drugs. It was not easy to instigate them. Apart from Qin Yuan, there were only 4 people who stood a chance. They were Bing Wuqing, Xue Jianfeng, Qianlong, and Jing Yueming, who were also threatened by the poisonous gas in their dantian. Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng were Golden Core experts. They were not easy to deal with. The only easier targets were Qianlong and Jing Yueming. Really? Qin Yuan was delighted. He quickly nodded and said, All right, I will act now. Remember, you have to pay special attention to avoid Jing Taiyang. He is the one who developed Jing Yueming. If he finds out, you will be finished. Also, the goo that the old man gave you is not simple. No one in the world can remove it except him. If you have any distracting thoughts, you will also be finished, Lin Yi said, looking at him. I understand. Qin Yuan was full of confidence. He had a distant relative in the Thousand Blades sect. He had been to the Thousand Blade sect before and knew many people. Although he did not know Jing Taiyang or Jing Yueming, it should not be difficult to trick them. Looking at Qin Yuan's back, Lin Dongfang suddenly said, "You are so at ease to let him go alone? What else can I do? I can't go with him, can I?" Lin Yi smiled and said indifferently, "This kid is not stupid. He cherishes his life and is afraid of death. He is the most suitable person for this kind of thing. It will be best if there are no accidents. If there are any accidents, I will just take it as a warning to the people in the center." "Aha, you are quite good at comforting yourself." Lin Dongfang laughed. After half a day, Qin Yuan returned with Jing Yueming behind him. Seeing that they were walking further and further away, Jing Yueming could not help but ask, "Tell me, what is the secret mission? Why did you bring me to the northern island of the Green Cloud sect? Why does Jing Taiyang have to avoid me?" Jing Taiyang was his superior and they were cousins. There was no reason that Jing Taiyang did not know about the mission. However, since Qin Yuan knew about the glasses doctor and the others, it meant that they were on the same side. But what kind of secret mission was this? "You will know when you get there," Qin Yuan said without turning his head. "Wait." Jing Yueming suddenly stopped. He looked at Qin Yuan warily and said, "Who are you? Why did you bring me here? Even now you're still doubting my identity?" Qin Yuan turned around and looked at him in disbelief. Then, he continued to walk forward with an indifferent expression. "If you have doubts, it doesn't matter if you go back now. No one will stop you. However, if the higher-ups ask about it later, don't blame me for telling them the truth." Chapter 51-56. This. Jing Yueming hesitated. The calmer and more indifferent Qin Yuan appeared, the easier it would be for him to believe him. "Forget it. Since you look pleasing to the eye, I will say one more thing. Joining the center means you have a new start. Under normal circumstances, you will always be the one going online. That is because you will always be the one going online if you earn some merit. However, this secret mission is a rare opportunity. If you are willing to let Jing Taiyang walk all over you, then pretend I did not say anything." After Qin Yuan finished speaking, he walked away without hesitation. What Jing Yueming said hit the nail on the head. It was true that he and Jing Taiyang were cousins, and it was also true that he was Jing Taiyang's underling. However, every time he saw Jing Taiyang's arrogant look, he wanted to walk all over Jing Taiyang, but he never had the ability to do so. Now the opportunity was here. "Okay, I will go with you." Jing Yueming made up his mind and quickly followed Qin Yuan's footsteps, but he froze after a while. The people in front of him weren't the glasses doctor or Dafeng Bro, but Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang. "Not bad. You did not disappoint me. Keep up the good work." Lin Yi smiled. "Okay, so who is next?" Qin Yuan was very self-aware this time. Not only did he want to live, but he also wanted to fight for his future. Plus, this kind of thing was almost risk-free. At least, it was much easier than fighting and killing. It would be a waste not to take the merit that was given to him. "Ancient Five Elements Sect, Bright Dragon," Lin Yi said casually. "Understood." Qin Yuan heard this and immediately set off again. Jing Yueming, who came with him, was dumbfounded. What was going on? Jing Yueming looked at Qin Yuan, who was leaving, and then looked at Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang. He was confused. You are also from the center?" Lin Dongfang looked at Jing Yueming in amusement. "I'm not afraid of not knowing what's good. I'm just afraid of comparing goods to goods. Before this, I didn't think much of Qin Yuan. But now I feel that you, kid, have a good eye. At least you aren't like this." "What do you mean by silly?" Jing Yueming still didn't know what was going on, and thought that Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang were the same as him, people who joined the center in secret, especially since these two were masters that couldn't be found in the common world. The only explanation was that they joined the center in secret. There was no other explanation other than the center's improved elixir. "Stop talking nonsense." Lin Yi did not want to explain to the idiot who had been tricked. He stepped forward and sent a 5-element murderous aura into Jing Yueming's head. Jing Yueming was only a master in the late stage of the foundational realm, so he could not fight back at all. He fell to the ground in pain and fainted. Compared to Qin Yuan, Jing Yueming was much stronger. Lin Dongfang took care of the poison in the dantian, and Lin Dongfang placed the poison into the dantian himself. The whole process went smoothly, and what happened after that was even simpler. Jing Yueming wasn't just a piece of trash, he was even more afraid of death than Qin Yuan was. Lin Yi hadn't even finished his sentence when Jing Yueming knelt down. After Qin Yuan was Jing Yueming, and after Jing Yueming was Qianlong. Lin Yi used this method to defeat them one by one. he had secretly subdued all three of them. The progress was surprisingly smooth. What are you going to do next? Do you want to find more people or do you want to wait? Lin Dongfang asked. Let's see how it goes. Lin Yi said after some thought. According to what he knew, the doctor and the others were very careful. Other than one-on-one training sessions, they'd also send these people to their temporary base for body checks. He didn't know if they'd find out what he'd done to Qin Yuan and the others, but he'd only be able to move forward if he passed this obstacle. Sure enough, a few days later, Qin Yuan was taken out by the bespectacled doctor alone for a physical examination. On one hand, it was to collect data and send it back to the center to improve the pills. After all, they were all human samples that were hard to come by. On the other hand, it was to monitor everyone's physical condition. If the poison showed signs of going out of control, they would be able to detect it in advance. If they found something that should not be in their bodies, they would not be able to escape from such comprehensive and strict monitoring. What Lin Yi did was not only get rid of the poison in their dantian, but he had also planted a curse in their brains. Although Lin Dongfang had done it secretly, it was still a big problem whether or not he could escape the detection of the center's high-tech equipment. Even Lin Yi was not sure about this. He could only wait for the results. Fortunately, the news that Qin Yuan brought back was good. The test results were normal from beginning to end. There were no abnormalities found. Lin Yi was still a little worried, but Jing Yueming and Qianlong reported the same results. He finally felt relieved. It seemed that the center's physical examination could not really lock onto the poison in one's dantian. It could only be discovered after the poison showed signs of going out of control. As for the faint traces of the curse, even Qin Yuan and the others could not detect it. It was reasonable that the center's high-tech equipment could not detect it. After all, it was Lin Dongfang's doing. This result not only made Lin Yi heave a sigh of relief, but Qin Yuan and the others were even more shocked. Before this, they thought that they were just unlucky to be targeted by Lin Yi. To be honest, they did not think that Lin Yi was very powerful, especially when compared to the mysterious center. They were not on the same level at all. However, after experiencing the physical examination personally, their preconceived notions were completely overturned. Lin Yi could easily get rid of the poison in the center. On the other hand, the center could not detect any abnormalities with the curse that Lin Yi had asked Lin Dongfang to plant on them. It was obvious who was superior. It looks like the situation is not bad. How is it? What's the next move? Lin Dongfang asked with interest. Since the center wants to cause trouble in the dark, let's play with them. They develop one and we will instigate another. Let's see who wins, Lin Yi said with a faint smile. That's interesting. Apart from Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng, according to what you've said before, they're the only ones who are really using poisonous gas to control the three of them. If this goes on, you'll soon become half the boss of the center, Lin Dongfang said with a laugh. Isn't that good? With me, the boss behind the scenes, they will not go around harming others. Lin Yi smiled and said, That's right, old man. I will need your help next. I cannot handle it alone. You are not thinking of attacking Shui Jianfeng, are you? Lin Dongfang guessed. Chapter 51-57. Bing Wuqing? Ah, you sure have a big appetite, kid. Lin Dongfang was overjoyed when he heard that. He had already heard that Bing Wuqing was now an expert in the late golden elixir realm. Such a level was already unimaginable in the secular world, and most people would avoid her like the plague. He did not expect that Lin Yi would actually want to subdue her in secret. Not only was his appetite big, but his courage was also frighteningly big. Don't forget that Lin Yi's current realm was only that of Foundation Establishment Great Completion. Just so. Lin Yi did not think much of it. It was true that his current strength was not as good as Bing Wuqing's, but one should not forget that his real body was at the late-stage Mysterious Ascension realm. His true strength was comparable to a Grandmaster-level expert. Forget late-stage Golden Elixir, even late-stage Nascent Soul would not be able to make him feel the slightest bit of fear. He would only want to subdue her even more. Then how are you going to lure him here? Are you going to send Qin Yuan or Qianlong? I don't think there's much hope, right? Lin Dongfang said with a frown. Although he had only fought with Bing Wuqing once, it was enough to tell that Bing Wuqing was not as simple as she seemed. This kind of person was completely different from Jing Yueming and Qianlong. It was impossible to lure her here for no reason. Neither. Lin Yi shook his head. Then we're going to visit him personally? Lin Dongfang asked in surprise. That's even more out of the question. We'll be too conspicuous if we go to other small islands. We'll definitely be discovered. Lin Yi shook his head even more. After the previous incident, he and Lin Dongfang had already become celebrities. Every move they made was being watched. The most important thing for this kind of thing was to be discreet. If the people in the center found out about it, then all their previous efforts would be in vain. This won't work, that won't work either. Kid, think of a way yourself. Lin Dongfang curled his lips and said, "Don't worry, I've already thought of a way. But I'll have to trouble you to write a letter." Lin Yi smiled. "What letter?" Lin Dongfang asked. "Letter of challenge." Lin Yi smiled faintly. Although Bing Wuqing seemed to be emotionless, she was definitely the kind of person who would die of pride. A person like her would never let a single failure go easily. Her crushing defeat at the hands of Lin Dongfang was a humiliation that she had to wash away. Especially now that her strength had been reborn, this fellow must have been dreaming of getting rid of that humiliation. It was just that she could not find the right opportunity. More accurately, she could not make up her mind. Lin Yi believed that as long as Lin Dongfang's letter of challenge was delivered, Bing Wuqing would definitely cast aside all her worries and come forward for the battle. After all, from the other party's point of view, he must have absolute confidence, and only lacked an opportunity. "Good lad, you're quite good at scheming." Lin Dongfang immediately understood Lin Yi's meaning. He immediately found a pen and paper and wrote 4 big words. "If you don't accept it, let's fight again." Lin Yi picked it up and scrutinized it for a long time. Finally he sighed, "These words are so fucking ugly. Are you itching for a beating? I'm imitating the style of a famous writer." "I'm blind," Lin Dongfang scolded. "It's ugly, but it's still worlds apart from what I've seen on the Heaven Step Island. That's the real deal, while yours is simply unsightly. It's better to write less in the future, lest people laugh at you," Lin Yi said seriously. He was naturally referring to Shanghai Tianhua, who was one of the top calligraphers on Heavenly Island. Ordinary people could not compare to him. Lin Dongfang was furious, but before he could do anything, Lin Yi had already disappeared. He could only murmur bitterly, "Is it really that ugly? Can't be." Lin Yi would not personally deliver the letter, or it would easily attract attention. Of course, he could not let Qin Yuan and the others do it, or Bing Wuqing would easily suspect him. Therefore, he randomly found a disciple from the north to deliver the letter. After all, he was the grandmaster who even Xanijia had to be respectful to. It was just a matter of a few words. As Lin Yi expected, after Bing Wuqing received the unsigned letter of challenge, she almost did not hesitate and directly came to him. There was no one else within a radius of a few miles, only Lin Dongfang, Lin Yi, and Bing Wuqing. "I didn't expect you to actually send me a letter of challenge." Bing Wuqing did not even look at Lin Yi. She directly walked towards Lin Dongfang. In her eyes, this was the only strong enemy. She was defeated in one blow when she was in the early stage of the Gold Elixir realm. Now that her strength had been reborn, she naturally wanted to avenge herself. "Wait." Lin Yi suddenly reached out to stop her. "What?" Bing Wuqing frowned and glanced at Lin Yi. Right now, she could not wait to fight Lin Dongfang. Anything else would be a hindrance. "I have nothing to do. Why don't you play with me first?" Lin Yi said with a grin. "You." Bing Wuqing's disdain was written all over her face. Not to mention that she was now an expert in the late stage of the Gold Elixir realm. Even back when she was only in the early stage of the Gold Elixir realm, she would not have really taken Lin Yi seriously. After all, Lin Yi's strength was only in the foundation building realm on paper. Overestimating yourself, huh? Lin Yi did not take it to heart at all. He knew very well that with his current strength, he was no match for Bing Wuqing. His original body might have been able to fight against the late stage of the Gold Elixir realm when he was in the foundation building realm at the foundation building realm, but it was unrealistic for this primordial spirit. However, he had not been stuck in the foundation building realm for so long in vain. This was a good opportunity to try out an ability that he had recently mastered. "What do you think?" Bing Wuqing still had no intention of making a move. However, she released her signature merciless ice force, which was at least tens or even hundreds of times stronger than before. Even an expert in the foundation building realm who was in the foundation building realm would find it hard to withstand such a heavy pressure. But Lin Yi's face was indifferent, not showing any signs of discomfort at all. He spread his hands and said calmly, "Is this considered a start?" Bing Wuqing was stunned. She did not expect Lin Yi's original body to be in existence comparable to an expert in the magnate realm. Although the merciless ice force was a special aura that was integrated with vital energy, it was still an aura at the end of the day. Suppressing a freak like Lin Yi with just an aura was not something that an ordinary expert in the magnate realm could do. A mere expert in the late stage of the gold elixir realm should just wash up and go to sleep. Interesting. I'll play with you then. A strange look flashed in Bing Wuqing's eyes. She moved and immediately attacked Lin Yi. Her speed was at least top-notch among experts of the same level. However, what surprised her was that Lin Yi's speed was much faster than hers. Even though she had already unleashed her full power, she could not catch up to the corner of Lin Yi's clothes. So this is all you've got? Lin Yi could not help but feel a little disappointed. Bing Wuqing's temperament was extraordinary. He had thought that she would at least be an expert who could make his eyes light up, but it turned out that she was only SOSO. Chapter 51-58. Today he was brimming with confidence as he sought revenge on Lin Dongfang. If he couldn't even handle Lin Yi, who was merely at foundation building great perfection, then what was the point of doing anything? Before he finished speaking, an ice wall suddenly appeared around Lin Yi, forming a 1-meter-wide ice prison in the blink of an eye, trapping Lin Yi within. Oh, that's not a bad move. Lin Yi nodded. In fact, he had already sensed the vital chi fluctuations around him the moment the ice prison appeared. With his speed, it wouldn't be difficult for him to escape if he gave it his all. However, he wanted to test out his new ability, which was why he stayed behind. But then again, this ice prison of Bing Wuqing's was extremely fast. Even if an average person could react in time, they wouldn't have the speed to escape, especially when they had to face the pressure of the merciless ice at the same time. It was indeed difficult to deal with. Are you really not afraid of death? In the blink of an eye, Bing Wuqing had already arrived in front of Lin Yi. Although the ice prison wasn't indestructible, the moment the person inside broke out of the prison, he would definitely reveal a flaw, which was more than enough for her to kill him. Will you kill me? Lin Yi stood with his hands behind his back. He had no intention of breaking the ice prison at all, and just looked at her indifferently. I'll give you a word of advice. People who think they're smart usually die a horrible death. Bing Wuqing's murderous intent immediately intensified. The bespectacled professor had indeed said not to provoke Lin Yi for the time being, but he had only mentioned it once and hadn't told them any deeper details. He could usually abide by it, but now that Lin Yi had delivered himself to his doorstep, he couldn't blame him for being impolite. At most, he would just be punished by the center afterward. Then go ahead. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Die. Before Bing Wuqing finished speaking, her hands had already turned into a pair of indestructible, sharp ice claws. They moved at an incredible speed, and a white light flashed past, piercing through the ice prison and Lin Yi's body without any suspense. Can we start now, Lin Dongfang? Bing Wuqing did not look at Lin Yi again. She turned around and walked towards Lin Dongfang. As for Lin Yi, whose chest had been pierced by her ice claws, he was already dead. Since he was already a dead man, what was there to see? However, before he could take a step forward, Lin Yi's nonchalant voice suddenly sounded behind him. Hey, isn't it a little too early for you to be so confident? How could this be? Bing Wuqing's eyelids twitched and she subconsciously turned her head to take a look. Immediately, she was dumbfounded by what she saw. Lin Yi, whose chest had been pierced by her, was completely unscathed. There wasn't a single wound on his body. Could it be that what happened just now was an illusion? Bing Wuqing herself did not notice it, but Lin Dongfang, who was standing beside her, saw it clearly. He could not help but look a little surprised. This brat is quite good. He can switch between the primordial spirit state and the primordial spirit state in an instant, and he can even control the switch in a certain area. If used well, this is an incredible ability. It seems that these few months have not been in vain. Just as Lin Dongfang said, the moment Bing Wuqing's ice claws touched his body, Lin Yi instantly switched that part of his primordial spirit state to the primordial spirit state. Therefore, even though his chest was pierced through, he did not suffer any damage. This was the new ability that he had been trying to figure out recently. Although it was only at the initial stage, he could not completely switch between the primordial spirit state and the primordial spirit state in an instant. He could only control a small part of it for now, but even so, it was already no small matter. This could be seen from the shocked expression on Bing Wuqing's face at this moment. In theory, Bing Wuqing, a late-stage golden elixir expert, had an overwhelming advantage, be it in terms of realm or strength. After all, Lin Yi was not like he was on Heaven Stage Island now, where he could not fight an opponent of a higher realm than him. However, at this moment it was Lin Yi who had the upper hand. The iconic merciless ice aura was completely ineffective from the start. Immediately after that, although he had trapped his opponent with an ice prison, he was not injured at all after the ice claws pierced through his chest. Faced with such a strange opponent, even Bing Wuqing could not help but feel a little helpless. How can this be? Who exactly are you? Bing Wuqing did not dare to act rashly at once. She could not help but recall the scene where she was beaten to the ground by Lin Dongfang in a single move. An inexplicable sense of foreboding began to linger in her heart, and she could not get rid of it. Leave this question for later and slowly explore on your own. All right, old man, now it's time for you to get down to business, said Lin Yi as he clapped his hands. Brat, you sure know how to order people around. Lin Dongfang curled his lips exasperatedly. Although he said that, he did not hesitate for even a moment and walked straight towards Bing Wuqing. Even though Lin Yi looked like he was invincible at the moment, he was still just a full-fledged foundation-building cultivator at the end of the day. At the very most, he could only contend with Bing Wuqing. As for defeating her, it was almost impossible for him to do so at the moment. Seeing that these two people did not take her seriously at all, Bing Wuqing was instantly infuriated. She was indeed shocked by Lin Yi's miraculous technique just now, but it was absolutely impossible for her to have any intention of retreating. Otherwise she would not be Bing Wuqing. You deserve to die. Bing Wuqing immediately attacked with all her might without holding anything back. The range of the merciless ice aura was condensed to an extremely small area, but its strength increased by more than a few times in an instant. Even the surrounding ground showed faint signs of sinking, and its power was evident. However, Lin Dongfang walked in so easily. Just like Lin Yi, he did not show any signs of being oppressed by the merciless ice aura at all. Instead, he strolled leisurely until he was 2 steps in front of Bing Wuqing, raised his hand and threw an ordinary punch. This punch clearly looked ordinary and unremarkable. Instead, it was extremely slow, and at first glance, it didn't seem to have any strength at all. Even an ordinary hooligan would be much more ferocious and powerful than this punch. However, it was such an ordinary punch that caused Bing Wuqing's expression to change drastically. He did not manage to see Lin Dongfang's punch clearly the last time they exchanged blows. He only felt that the punch was extremely powerful at the moment he was hit. This time he finally saw how the other party threw the punch, but that was all. Faced with Lin Dongfang's extremely ordinary punch, Bing Wuqing was so stunned that she could not put up any resistance. It was not that she did not want to, but that she could not move at all. At this moment, her entire body had been suppressed by the punch that was as heavy as a mountain. The clearer she could see it, the more irresistible this kind of pressure was. In comparison, her merciless ice aura was like a child in the presence of a great wizard. Chapter 51-59. However, Lin Dongfang's punch didn't land on her face. Instead, he stopped at the last moment and asked calmly, "Do you still want to fight? There's no point in fighting anymore." Bing Wuqing shook her head with a bitter smile. This punch was enough to make her realize the huge gap in strength between them. Although she didn't know what realm her opponent was at, and didn't even know if her opponent was a cultivator, because she hadn't sensed any fluctuation of vital energy from the beginning to the end, she already knew that there was no hope for her. "Wanna watch?" "That's fine. It'll be troublesome if I really injure you." Lin Dongfang nodded. He knew that Lin Yi could heal people quickly, but this punch of his would definitely injure Bing Wuqing badly. Even Lin Yi couldn't heal her in a short period of time, and it would be easy to arouse suspicion. "What do you mean?" Bing Wuqing frowned. Although she had been full of resentment ever since she was crippled, the moment she realized the huge gap between them, the resentment immediately dissipated. This was human nature. Hatred only existed between people of similar levels. Once they were on completely different levels, there would only be respect and fear left. Hatred and the like would naturally become fleeting clouds. "What I mean is that I'll give you a new boss. Why don't you consider it?" Lin Yi walked over and said with a faint smile, "Don't worry. I can deal with the poisonous gas that the center is using to threaten you." "Are you kidding me?" Bing Wuqing's face darkened. She was shocked. How did this guy know about these things? "You'll know soon enough whether I'm kidding or not. Wanna watch?" As Lin Yi spoke, he reached out with one hand and used the killing aura of the 5 elements to strangle the poisonous gas hidden in the other party's dantian with ease. With Lin Yi at the side as a deterrent, although Bing Wuqing resisted, she didn't dare to break away from Lin Yi. When Qin Yuan and the others were strangling the poisonous gas, they were all in so much pain that they wanted to die. However, other than looking a little pale, she didn't make a sound. "Who the hell are you?" This was the second time Bing Wuqing had asked such a question in such a short period of time. She was shocked to find that the poisonous gas that had rendered her helpless had actually been cleanly dealt with by Lin Yi in such a short period of time. Such methods were simply unimaginable, not to mention the miraculous skills that he had displayed previously. Truly unfathomable. As I said earlier, I'll leave this question to you. I believe you won't be disappointed. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. He then said, I know you were forced to join the center. Now that the threat of the poisonous gas is gone, why don't you make a new choice? Do I have any other choice? Bing Wuqing asked in return. You're smart, no? Lin Yi's answer was very straightforward. If the other party was given a second choice, then why would he waste so much effort? Ever since he arrived at this transit island, Bing Wuqing had always been one of his main targets to monitor. In the end, the result was that this person was very rational and pragmatic. She had no standpoint to speak of. This could be seen from the fact that she had agreed to join the center without any hesitation. It was precisely because of this that he had made Bing Wuqing his target. Bing Wuqing fell silent. Her gaze swept between Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang. Lin Dongfang's unfathomable abilities? Needless to say, even with his current abilities of the late Golden Elixir stage, he couldn't muster up the will to fight against him. As for Lin Yi, although he appeared to be only at the foundation building grade completion, he had an endless variety of miraculous skills. He was also an unfathomable character. Faced with such an unfathomable duo, coupled with the situation as Lin Yi had said, he indeed had no second choice. Unless he died. After a while, Bing Wuqing said, What do you want me to do? Simple. Stay in the center and be my spy, Lin Yi said. All right, Bing Wuqing agreed readily. Very good. You are indeed a sensible person. But to be on the safe side you have to suffer a little. Lin Yi nodded and immediately asked Lin Dongfang to cast a spell on him. This was within Bing Wuqing's expectations, no matter what she thought. No matter what he thought, he didn't show any signs of resistance on the surface. Instead, he was very cooperative. But after Lin Dongfang cast the spell on him, he was shocked again. He sighed inwardly. These two guys were indeed extraordinary. After Lin Yi had explained some things to take note of, Bing Wuqing stood up and left. But before she left, Lin Yi suddenly stopped her and threw an elixir at her. Consider this a greeting gift. Perform well in the future. Golden elixir? And of the highest grade. Bing Wuqing's eyelids twitched. The golden elixir was the dream elixir for all foundation building consummation experts and golden core experts, especially when it was of the highest grade. The impact was even greater than the improved version of the elixir he had received from the center. Although the effects were more direct and terrifying for a knowledgeable person like him, the value of the highest grade golden elixir was definitely not small. Looking at Bing Wuqing's silhouette as she left without saying a word, Lin Dongfang suddenly said, Why are you so generous to this guy? He's worth it. Don't you think so, old man? Lin Yi asked in return. He's not bad. Lin Dongfang was non-committal. At least compared to the other disciples of the Archaic Alliance, including Xianijia, the uncle master who was leading the team, Bing Wuqing was obviously much better in all aspects. Her aptitude was also top-notch, so it was indeed worth investing some capital on her. Anyway, I don't lack elixirs. The others don't need them and you don't want them. Just treat it as giving him a taste of the benefits first, Lin Yi said lightly. What do I want this for? What's the use of it? Lin Dongfang snorted disdainfully at his elixirs. Lin Yi was speechless. If he released any of these elixirs, not to mention in the secular world, it would cause a sensation even in the heaven-level island. But in the end, they were worthless in old Lin's eyes. Instead, he had a look of disdain on his face. He really didn't know what to say. All right, let's talk about the next step, Lin Dongfang said casually. All right, let's not think about Xue Jianfeng for now. Next, I plan to look for Jing Taiyang and the others to do some research. Although they are brainwashed and controlled by the center, which is not as simple and direct as the poisonous gas, they might be able to find a way, Lin Yi said. That would be best. After all, a total of 15 foundation building experts is not a joke. After all, this is only the secular world, Lin Dongfang nodded and said. Chapter 5160. Why did you go to the Blue Cloud Clan's territory in the North Island for no reason? The doctor in glasses frowned and asked. He didn't pay attention to people like Qin Yuan at first, but Bing Wuqing was the expert he valued the most. He paid close attention to her every move, and he would know immediately if there was any sign of trouble. To challenge Lin Dongfang, Bing Wuqing said calmly. Lin Dongfang? Why did you challenge him? Didn't I tell you not to provoke Lin Yi? The bespectacled professor jumped in fright. Lan Xiaoru had warned him over and over again not to provoke Lin Yi. This was an order from the top, and now Lan Xiaoru was challenging Lin Dongfang. Wasn't she just looking for trouble for him? I didn't provoke Lin Yi. I just challenged Lin Dongfang. Bing Wuqing shook her head. Lin Dongfang and Lin Yi are one and the same. Can't you see that? The doctor in glasses was furious. He admired Bing Wuqing and was willing to give her enough freedom to do things on her own. But this matter had crossed the line, and it was even related to his own future in life. He couldn't help but get angry. Bing Wuqing remained silent. The doctor in glasses was angry for a long time before he said, Fine, fine, fine. I know you hate Lin Dongfang to the core. After all, you were defeated by him. Now that you're strong, it's understandable that you can't hold back your thoughts. But this is an order from the top. If anything happens, even I can't protect you. Tell me what's the result. Lin Dongfang's strength was also a mystery. To some extent he was even more mysterious than Lin Yi. It wouldn't be a bad thing if they could take this opportunity to find out Lin Yi's strength. Of course, the premise was that they couldn't really provoke Lin Yi. After all, the top was still counting on them to show goodwill and even to rope in Lin Yi. It didn't work. Bing Wuqing wasn't stupid. Since she had chosen to rely on Lin Yi, she couldn't reveal Lin Dongfang's strength. Moreover, she really didn't know Lin Dongfang's specific strength. She only knew that he was unfathomable and she was no match for him. Why? The doctor in glasses frowned. If he doesn't accept the challenge and Lin Yi is standing next to him, there's nothing I can do. Bing Wuqing pushed all the blame away. She was not afraid that the bespectacled professor would send someone to inquire about this matter. Even if he did, he would not be able to find out anything. After all, she had not really fought with Lin Yi or Lin Dongfang. She had only stopped where she was and did not make much noise. No one else knew about it at all. If that's the case, then forget it. I'm still very confident in you, but remember, don't do it again, okay? The bespectacled doctor pretended to be persuasive. Yes, Bing Wuqing replied with a nod. Also, you need to put in more effort to win over the Archaic Alliance's disciples. The current progress is too slow. It's not ideal. The bespectacled doctor was halfway through his sentence when he saw Xue Jianfeng walking over. He couldn't help but be startled. He didn't summon this guy? Leader, I have something to report in private. What do you think? Xue Jianfeng looked at Bing Wuqing hesitantly. Then, the bespectacled doctor paused for a moment, then nodded and said, All right, I have nothing else to tell you. Bing Wuqing, you can go back first. After Bing Wuqing had left, Xue Jianfeng said, Leader, I think Bing Wuqing went to the Blue Cloud sect on the North Island previously. It wasn't your idea, was it? No, but I've already asked him. The bespectacled doctor glanced at him and said, That Qianlong and Jing Yueming also went to the Blue Cloud sect on the North Island. Do you know about this too? Xue Jianfeng asked. They went too. Did Qin Yuan tell you about this? The bespectacled doctor was shocked. If it was just Bing Wuqing alone, it would not have been a big deal. After all, the reason was sufficient, and there was nothing to be suspicious about. But now that so many people had gone to the Blue Cloud sect on the North Island, and all of them had gathered at the same time, it was necessary to be on guard. You've misunderstood. Qin Yuan might be my spy, but I, Xue Jianfeng, am still one of the top figures in the Archaic Alliance. Now that I've recovered my strength, there are bound to be some familiar faces in the various sections. It's not difficult for me to know what's going on. Xue Jianfeng deliberately showed off. Really? Then why didn't you show it before? If you have such a wide network, why did you only recruit Qin Yuan after such a long time? The bespectacled doctor frowned and said, Hey leader, you've misunderstood. This is a different matter. Although I have a wide network and I can pass on a message when I meet them, I don't have any deep relationships with these people. How would I dare to recruit them rashly? If something goes wrong, wouldn't that be a bad thing? Xue Jianfeng explained. That's true. How are Bing Wuqing's connections? The bespectacled doctor asked. Compared to Xue Jianfeng, he obviously admired Bing Wuqing more. This was an obvious fact. Xue Jianfeng's expression froze. This time he had specially come not just to snitch on Bing Wuqing, but mainly for himself. Although his current strength was far from Bing Wuqing's, he was not willing to always be below her. However, if the bespectacled doctor continued to develop like this, he would never be able to surpass Bing Wuqing in this lifetime. Leader, there's something you don't know. Although Bing Wuqing is stronger than me in the archaic underworld, strength alone won't be enough to make a name for herself. It also depends on her background and connections. Not many disciples in the Archaic Alliance will respect her because there are no benefits. Usually they will just stay away from her, but I'm different. Shui Jianfeng smiled proudly. How so? The bespectacled doctor asked in surprise. The reason is simple. It's because my father is the vice-sect leader of the Snow Sword faction. Once he gets promoted, he will be the leader of the Snow Sword faction. You should know that the Snow Sword faction is one of the 10 small sects and clans of the Archaic Alliance. Their influence is not to be underestimated. Naturally they will respect her, Shui Jianfeng boasted. That's true. The bespectacled doctor nodded. He was naturally aware of Shui Jianfeng's background. Previously he did not pay much attention to him, but now that he heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. In that case, Shui Jianfeng's value was not inferior to Bing Wuqing's at all. Strictly speaking, he was far more valuable than Bing Wuqing. Although he could not see the bespectacled doctor's expression, Shui Jianfeng could sense the change in his attitude. He was overjoyed, thinking that his trip today was not in vain. He quickly expressed his stance and said, "Leader, that father of mine has always listened to me. In the future, if our center really develops into the archaic underworld, I can help to rope them in. It will also be a contribution to our center." Chapter 5161. Yes, thank you for the compliment. But I'm not strong enough now. If I could be promoted to a higher level, my words would carry more weight. By then, it wouldn't be a problem to rope in the entire Snow Sword faction, let alone my father. Shui Jianfeng said deliberately. You want to improve yourself? If the bespectacled doctor still didn't understand what he meant, he must be out of his mind. But from the perspective of a superior, he didn't mind Shui Jianfeng having such thoughts. Besides, this guy was indeed worth training. Of course, if the superior trains me well, I'll do anything for you, Shui Jianfeng said hurriedly. That's good. The headquarters has an important training program. As long as you perform well, I can recommend you to the superiors. I guarantee that your strength will improve by leaps and bounds. The bespectacled doctor promised immediately. Really? Thank you so much, superior. Shui Jianfeng was overjoyed. After thanking him profusely, Shui Jianfeng left while turning his head back every 3 steps. The bespectacled doctor chuckled meaningfully. Ambition, background, and ability. Needless to say, he's quite the material. Why do I feel that this guy isn't very reliable? Brother Dafeng came up and said. He had heard the conversation from the beginning to the end. He had seen Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng's performance. You're thinking too much. With the threat of poisonous gas, he won't dare to betray us. Besides, it's a good thing that he's ambitious because that's why he needs the strength of our center. The bespectacled doctor glanced at him and thought to himself, You're a traitor. How dare you say that? You're really good at pretending. Brother Dafeng frowned and didn't say anything else. He was still anxious about how to contact Lin Yi. He knew that Lin Yi was definitely on the transit islands, but he couldn't go out alone. He didn't even have a chance to send a message. By the way, these people all went to the Green Cloud faction on the North Island. We have to be careful, the bespectacled doctor muttered. How? Brother Dafeng asked. You don't have to worry about that. I have my ways. The bespectacled doctor snorted. The first person he had to be careful of was Brother Dafeng. He could let Brother Dafeng know everything on the surface, but he couldn't say anything else. A few days later, Bing Wuqing was summoned for a physical examination as usual. She didn't find anything wrong with her, but at the last moment she suddenly felt something. Others might not feel it, but he had an extraordinary perception. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to master ruthless ice force. He clearly felt that something was implanted into him. It was very subtle, but there was no doubt. He didn't know what it was, but he immediately realized that it must be a high-tech device used by the center to secretly monitor him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to be so secretive. Bing Wuqing didn't dare to let her guard down. As the leading master uncle of the Snow Sword faction, she had to participate in the mining like the other disciples. Moreover, Lin Yi had told her before that if anything happened in the future, she could use the mining as an opportunity to communicate with him. As expected, he saw Lin Yi while he was mining, but the two didn't get too close. They waited until they reached a secluded area, and Lin Yi didn't use the opportunity to catch his breath to talk. Instead, they made a few hand gestures. Him? That's troublesome. Lin Yi frowned inwardly. If Bing Wuqing had something like that on her, then it wasn't hard to imagine that the others would have something similar on them as well. If that was the case, it wouldn't be realistic to continue attacking Jing Taiyang and the others. The people in the center were really alert. Lin Yi didn't dare to be negligent. This wasn't a small problem. If it had been someone else, Qin Yuan and the others might not have been able to detect it. They might even have given themselves away. Lin Yi didn't dare to be negligent. It was a sudden crisis, but it wasn't enough to make Lin Yi panic. After all, it was just a small situation for him. It couldn't be compared to the ups and downs he had experienced on the Heaven Stage Island. Don't be nervous. Since the center is so cautious, we'll give them some face. Don't act rashly for now. Lin Yi didn't say anything, but his voice suddenly sounded in Bing Wuqing's mind. Bing Wuqing was stunned. She immediately understood that Lin Yi had used the technique of transmitting vital energy to his voice. Ordinary people might not be able to do that, but he was a golden core expert who had seen a lot in the immemorial pugilistic world. He knew this technique, but he didn't use it often. Won't they know you're transmitting vital energy to your voice? Bing Wuqing replied in the same way. She knew how to transmit vital energy to her voice, but she knew nothing about the technology of the secular world. She didn't know if transmitting vital energy to her voice could hide from these technology. Of course not. You don't understand the principle of the monitoring device. It can detect sound waves, but it can't detect vital energy waves. No matter how powerful the center is, it can't do that. This is because technology and cultivation are two things that have nothing to do with each other. To truly integrate technology and cultivation is not something that can be done in a few years or decades. It might be possible in the distant future, but it's impossible now. As Lin Yi passed on this message, he couldn't help but think of Han Jingjing. When it came to integrating technology and cultivation, this girl was definitely ahead of everyone else. After all, it was probably impossible to find a second automatic alchemy artifact in the whole world. Lin Yi's explanation was simple and clear, but Bing Wuqing didn't understand. She didn't understand the technology of the secular world, so she naturally didn't understand it. Alright, I understand. So what's next is to wait and see. Bing Wuqing asked. That's right. Let's wait and see first. If anything happens, I'll let you know. Lin Yi nodded. Apart from Bing Wuqing, he also wanted to find an opportunity to transmit vital energy to Qin Yuan, Qinlong, Jing Yueming, and the others through transmitting vital energy to them. He was contacting these people on his own. After all, it was better to be safe than sorry. After returning from the spirit jade mine at the bottom of the sea, the first thing Lin Yi did was to look for Lin Dongfang. He smiled bitterly and said, I've just received news that the center has started to install listening devices on Bing Wuqing and the others. It seems that they've been alerted by the fact that they've come to our island. You don't have to work anymore. Jing Taiyang and the others won't be able to make a move on us for now. Ah, that's to be expected. It's very normal. Lin Dongfang laughed. Chapter 5162. Of course it's normal. I've long guessed that the center wouldn't be easy to deal with. Back then, even your master didn't have much of an effect after fighting with the center for so long. Your little tricks are just child's play at best. Lin Dongfang smiled. Child's play? The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. Whether it was from his or Lin Dongfang's point of view, instigating Bing Wuqing and the others to defect wasn't considered a big move. In the end, it was just a small squabble, but it was still different from children playing house. Why? You think I'm not? Lin Dongfang smiled and pouted. Compared to what Yang Ming had done in the past, it was not an exaggeration to say that Lin Yi's actions were child's play. Lin Yi was instantly amused. He couldn't help but ask curiously, since there's nothing to do now, why don't you tell me about my master in the center? You always kept me guessing when I asked you about these things in the past. But now that I have some strength and ability, I can't possibly continue to hide it now, right? Ever since he was young, he had asked this question countless times. Unfortunately, Lin Dongfang had never told him, always saying that he was not strong enough. Even if he told him, it would be useless. Now that he had mentioned it, he naturally had to ask out of habit. However, he did not have much hope in his heart. Unexpectedly, after a moment of silence, Lin Dongfang actually said, Fine. Since it's come to this, it's good to tell you. At least you'll know what to do in the future. Really? Lin Yi was shocked himself. He was nervous and excited as he hurriedly urged, Hurry up! Hurry up! He couldn't be blamed for losing his composure. He knew very little about these things and had always been curious. It was almost a sore point. Now that Lin Dongfang suddenly told him, it would be strange if he wasn't excited. Alright, but where should I start? Lin Dongfang rubbed his eyebrows. From the beginning, of course. Don't keep me in suspense. Hurry up, Lin said impatiently. From the beginning? How long would that take? Lin Dongfang rolled his eyes at him and said, then let's start from the center. Do you know who the founder of the center is? Oh, Lin hurriedly asked. Ever since his soul projection returned to the secular world, he had always wanted to investigate the center. Aside from the teleportation method between the secular world and Heaven Stage Island, this was the most important thing he wanted to know. Only by knowing the founder of the center could he truly understand its ins and outs. Li Boyang. This person has advanced technology. The center was founded by him. Lin Dongfang said. Advanced technology? No wonder the technological prowess of the center is so strong, it's all because of this. Lin heard this and immediately asked, then why did he fight with my master? He didn't fight with your master Yang Ming at first. His biggest enemy was actually your grandfather. Lin Dongfang laughed. What? My grandfather? Do you know my grandfather? Lin suddenly froze. He always thought that he was an orphan, an abandoned baby picked up by Lin Dongfang from the outside. Apart from Lin Dongfang, the only real elder was Master Yang Ming. But listening to Lin Dongfang's words, he actually knew my grandfather. Of course, your family has a deep grudge with the center. If your grandfather didn't steal the goddess that he yearned for, why would Li Boyang fight with your family? Lin Dongfang said with a smile. It can actually involve my grandfather's generation? Lin was baffled. He thought that the grudge was at most between Li Boyang and his master. He didn't expect it to trace back so far. Even his grandfather was involved and he even stole the goddess of others? If you really want to talk about it, the 3 generations of your family are deeply entangled with the center. Your grandfather fought with them, your parents fought with them, and when it comes to your generation you still have to continue fighting with them. Of course your master Yang Ming is also fighting with them. This entanglement is not just deep, it is simply unfathomable. Lin Dongfang laughed. Old man, do you know my parents? Can you tell me about them? Lin immediately asked impatiently. Although he had no concept of parents since he was a child, and he didn't have any intuitive impression of them, the word parents had always been the most yearning and the most unreachable word for him. He always thought that he was an orphan with an unknown origin, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that he suddenly heard Lin Dongfang say this, he suddenly became excited. Even with his psychological quality, he couldn't control it. People's hearts were made of flesh. It was an innate instinct for everyone to trace back to their roots. It had nothing to do with strength. Your parents? Well, since we've already talked about it, there's no harm in revealing a few things to you. Your father is Lu Yezi. He used to be a member of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. He's your master's best friend. Lin Dongfang said briefly. Lu Yezi? My father is Lu Yezi? Lin quickly remembered the name. At the same time he was shocked. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't imagine that his father was actually a member of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau and was a best friend of his master. Then he quickly asked, then, what about my mother? By the way, since my father's surname is Lu, why is my surname Lin? It's very simple. It's because you followed your mother's surname. Her name is Lin Yi. Lin Dongfang smiled and then added, let me say one more thing. She is my adopted daughter. Adopted daughter? Lin choked again when he heard the words. He looked at Lin Dongfang up and down again, dumbfounded. He stuttered, so, aren't you my grandfather? What else do you think? Lin Dongfang said with a smile. Lin choked for a long time and couldn't say a word. Everything from childhood to adulthood was vivid in his mind. He didn't feel anything before, but now that he thought about it, the feeling was completely different. He was speechless for a long time before he smiled bitterly. You've been hiding it from me for a long time. For so many years, he had never known what the relationship between him and Lin Dongfang was. They were not master and apprentice, nor were they grandfather and grandson. Every time he asked, there was no result. He could only muddle through without understanding. Who would have thought that the old man was actually his grandfather? Chapter 5163. Ugh. This is also true. Lin had to smile. Although he wasn't like Shengguan Laner, Ning Xuefei, and the other young ladies who hated cultivation, he was still very playful when he was a child. Every day he would think about going up the mountain to get bird eggs or go down the river to catch fish. If it weren't for Lin Dongfang who had been forcing him behind his back, he probably wouldn't be able to achieve anything even if he became Yang Ming's disciple, let alone reaching the level he had today. Fortunately, you kid didn't embarrass me. You're not useless, Lin Dongfang said with a tone of relief and fear. Hey, you're my grandfather. You don't have to look down on me like this. Linny didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, oh yeah, you just said that my family is fighting with the center. What about you, old man? Are you also a sworn enemy of the center? Me. My sworn brother, who is your master, is fighting to the death with the center. My daughter and son-in-law are also fighting to the death with the center. Anyone who has even the slightest relationship with me is fighting to the death with the center. What do you think my relationship with the center is? Lin Dongfang curled his lips. So, you're being dragged onto the pirate ship? Linny teased. That's not it. I'm already on the ship. How can I be dragged onto it? Lin Dongfang laughed. That's right. Old man, you should tell me more about my parents. I've been waiting. Linny couldn't wait to urge again. If you really want to know about these things, then wait until you see them in the future and ask them yourself. Why are you asking me? Lin Dongfang took the opportunity to keep him in suspense. Linny was speechless for a while, but then he reacted and said with surprise and joy, I can still see them? They're not dead? How can you say that? My daughter and son-in-law are all fine. Is there a son like you? You haven't even met them and you're already cursing them? Lin Dongfang couldn't help but roll his eyes at him. No, I was just too excited, that's why I spoke without thinking. Linny shook his head repeatedly. In his imagination, since his parents had entrusted him to Lin Dongfang, it was most likely that something bad had happened to them. Otherwise, which parents in the world would casually entrust their child to someone else, even if that person was a grandfather? Now that he knew that his parents were still alive, Lin Yi's mood couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised and complicated. Noticing Lin Yi's complicated expression, Lin Dongfang explained, Don't think too much about it. There must be a reason why they placed you here. After all, only my place can be considered a rare pure land that stands aloof from worldly affairs. Yes. Linny nodded. He had always been an open-minded person. If it was someone else, they might be stuck in a dead end, but he would not think too much about it. Just as Lin Dongfang had said, since his parents had made such arrangements, they naturally had their own reasons. He would naturally know when they met again in the future. Okay, what else do you want to ask? Hurry up and ask now. I'll say this first, I won't wait for you if you're late. Lin Dongfang urged. He had already smelled the smell of Aunt Qing cooking in the distance. Compared to nagging with Linny about these things, it was obviously more important for him to eat. Well, I'll ask an off-topic question. I have asked these questions before, but you never said it. Why did you suddenly ask me so much today? Linny couldn't help but ask curiously. The sun rose from the west. Lin Dongfang said casually without sincerity. Linny was speechless and smiled bitterly. I asked so seriously. Even if you want to deal with it, can you at least be more sincere? It's too disrespectful. Alright, since you've asked so sincerely, I'll be merciful and answer you with sincerity. I didn't tell you this before because your level wasn't high enough, so no matter how much I said, it would be useless. But now, although it's still useless, at least I can give you a direction to work towards. You don't have to be complacent and make no progress. Is that okay? Lin Dongfang glanced at him and said. Still not sincere, but it's more like a human. Linny chuckled. Actually, even if you didn't say that, I wouldn't have stayed where I was. My training isn't just for myself, it's for the people around me. I can't stop for them. This was the truth. Based on what he did on the Heaven Stage Island, returning to the secular world to save a group of beauties was his biggest motivation. It was also because of this that he did not dare to slack off. In just 3 years, he soared from the early stage of foundation establishment all the way to the early stage of profound ascension. This kind of miracle was difficult for outsiders to understand. Even he himself felt that it was incredible when he thought about it. Not bad, at least a little responsible. Lin Dongfang rarely praised. By the way, there's one more thing I've always wanted to ask. Linny suddenly took out the jade pendant he wore and asked, You should know what's going on with my jade pendant, right? Although he had obtained the jade pendant in a fortuitous encounter in the cave, when he gradually discovered the magic of the jade pendant, he knew that the origin of the jade pendant was definitely not simple. Moreover, from Lin Dongfang's behavior, it could be seen that the old man definitely knew about it. Moreover, it was very likely that this magical jade pendant was related to the old man. Lin Dongfang was silent for a moment as if recalling the past. Then he slowly said, "Back then your master, your father, and I traveled together in the Miaojiang Valley. There, we met a very powerful science and technology doctor. His name was Sun Sikong." Wait, Sun Sikong? Lin Yi's mind flashed and he immediately jumped in shock. Isn't Sun Sikong Jing's master? He's actually your friend? Not only that, but he's also a mad scientist under your grandfather. Back then he came to Earth to protect your father. To a certain extent, it was his magical glasses that created your master. It was your master's starting point from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Lin Dongfang couldn't help but feel a little emotional when he said this. Thinking back, his days were full of legends like Lin Yi's. The name of the twin evils Vajra was so terrifying that people would tremble in fear. Now he was holed up in the West Star Mountain village in retirement. Thinking about it made one sigh. Then what does he have to do with the jade pendant? Lin Yi was confused. The relationship is very simple. This jade pendant was made by him. Lin Dongfang's words were shocking. Chapter 5164. What else do you think? Not only this jade pendant, but the caves and valleys that you encountered in the past were all arranged by us in advance to fool you. Do you really think that a pie fell from the sky and you can have a fortuitous encounter just by taking a few steps? How can there be so many fortuitous encounters in the world? Do you think you are making up a novel? Lin Dongfang curled his lips. Ugh, are you kidding me? Lin Yi blushed with shame. But when he thought about it, he was still young and playful. If there were no fortuitous encounters, he would not have been so curious and diligent in his cultivation. This group of people really put in a lot of effort. Now you know what it means to be a parent in the world. For the sake of letting you cultivate properly, all of us have to go through all this trouble. We're all playing with you, said Lin Dongfang with a smile. Wait a minute. Since this jade pendant was made by Sun Sikong, what about Jiao Lao? What's the matter with Jiao Lao? A living person can't be made by him, right? Lin Yi asked quickly. That's not it. That's not it. Jiao Yazi is a real person. I think he's your grandfather's martial nephew or something. Anyway, it's a mess. I don't know the specifics. You should ask them yourself in the future. In short, your entire family and your master are in big trouble. Lin Dongfang said in a low voice. Is it because of this center? Lin Yi asked quickly. Yes, it's the center. Li Buoyang was your grandfather's classmate. This person is not to be underestimated. Sun Sikong's technology level is good enough, right? In comparison, he is not bad at all. Otherwise, it is impossible for the center to have such advanced technology. This person is a great enemy. Lin Dongfang said with a rare serious expression. Although he already knew that the grudge between his family and the center could be traced back to his grandfather's generation, Lin Yi was still a little confused when he heard these words. He really did not expect that his family and the center would be a feud of 3 generations. In fact, until now he was still a little puzzled. There was clearly no irreconcilable hatred between him and the center, but for some reason, they always unconsciously walked to the opposite side and always had all kinds of conflicts. He even felt that the center was troublesome because of this, but now, it seemed that this was originally a predetermined fate. In this way, from now on, Lin Yi would no longer have to play tricks on the center. Even if he wanted to kill the center, Lin Yi wouldn't feel any guilt. After all, this was what he was supposed to do. Now that you mention it, I'm under a lot of pressure. Although Lin Yi smiled bitterly, the expression on his face was very resolute. In the past, it didn't matter if he didn't know about this, but now it was different. The burden on his shoulders was even heavier. Now that he had identified this powerful enemy at the center, no matter who it was, they would feel a lot of pressure. Even though he had always been fearless, he couldn't help but feel a little heavy. What pressure do you have? Lin Dongfang curled his lips disapprovingly and said with a smile, although the center is not to be trifled with so far, they at most only pay attention to you. For the time being, they won't gather their strength to deal with a little brat like you. If you want to talk about pressure, it's on your master and your parents. They are facing the true strength of the center. Then, where are my master and my parents now? Lin Yi hurriedly asked. It was definitely impossible for them to be on Earth. Otherwise, with modern communication methods, it would be impossible for him not to receive any news. According to his speculation, they were either in another plane like Heavenly Island or in outer space. Although it sounded too unrealistic with the current technological means of the secular world, don't forget that whether it was the center or Sun Sikong, they were both far above the secular world in terms of technology. This was not completely impossible. I'm not too sure about the specifics because I haven't been there before. Roughly speaking, it should be in another plane. Lin Dongfang's answer was just as Lin Yi expected. The same as Heavenly Island? Lin Yi's eyes lit up. There are still some differences. As far as I know, that is the transfer point of the four-dimensional space. Because of some reason they are now in a deadlock with the center there. As for the exact situation, I don't know. Lin Dongfang sighed and said, "Can I go?" Lin Yi suddenly felt a surge of emotions. He had never seen his parents, but he had absolute confidence in his master, Yang Ming, so he wasn't too worried about Yang Ming and his parents' situation. However, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried at all. Moreover, he really wanted to see his parents as soon as possible. This was human nature. What are you going to do with your little strength? Run to be cannon fodder and a burden? Lin Dongfang glared at him. Lin Yi thought that with the strength of his current Yuan Shen, a mere foundation establishment great perfection couldn't even make a living in the archaic alliance, let alone run to support Master Yang Ming. He could only say, what if it's my real body? Can I do it with the strength of the early stage of mysterious ascension? Let's not talk about whether your strength is enough or not. Even if it is, I don't know how to get there. What's the use of asking me? Lin Dongfang shook his head and said earnestly, the most important thing for you now is to practice hard. When you are strong enough, no matter what you do, you will be able to get twice the result with half the effort. As for the four-dimensional space, wait until you have the strength to run amok on Heavenly Island. It's still too early to talk about it now. This? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment, then nodded heavily. Well, I know what to do. As Lin Dongfang said, his current strength was still obviously insufficient. Although his main body could possess the strength comparable to a magnate realm master at the early stage of the mysterious ascension realm, this strength was far from first class even in the heavenly stage island. He was still far from those real top masters, not to mention the mysterious and unfathomable center. One day when he really had the strength to run amok on Heaven Stage Island, then he could really help Master Yang Ming and his parents. Although he was anxious at the moment, he could only turn his impatience into motivation to work hard and strive to reach the next level as soon as possible. Okay, that's enough for today. You can slowly ask them later. Come, let's go eat. After Lin Dongfang said he was busy snatching food, you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.